Hello everybody and welcome back to another Pointless Top 10 compilation video. This one's about creatures and mobs in World of Warcraft, and I've also included gorillas because I forgot to put them in the animal compilation, so enjoy. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Pointless Top 10, a show where I make top 10 lists out of pointless things, where we fly and buy a pointless statue in Booty Bay, because inside pointless things are treasure. Let's begin. 10. Number 10 are the Snowblind Follower Kobolds located in Storm Peaks, and these kobolds are running alongside the Magnetar Invaders, and I believe they are running towards K3, trying to attack it or something. But as you can see there, the K3 perimeter turrets are up, and they are just completely zapping all of these kobolds. There's also the quest where you have to put the landmines down, and that blows up kobolds and Magnetars, and I think there's some other stuff too, but the main thing is if they get too far, they just get zapped anyway, so it's whatever. But I always thought this was such a goofy situation, like all these kobolds and Magnetar just charging across this big open snowfield and then just getting zapped and blown up and all that stuff. In fact, there's some amazing kobold quotes such as, "Net not stop me, no, net stop me, and you no take me." This also used to be a daily quest where you would have to capture 8 Snowblind followers and bring them to Savina Loresong at the Argent Tournament grounds by using a weighted net, which is why they have the net quote, obviously. But either way, I love these goofy snowballs, and that's why they're number 10. 9. Number 9 are the Tunnel Rats and Commander Nazrim, located at the Silverstream Mine and near the Silverstream Mine in Loch Modan. And so the Silverstream Mine ran dry long ago, and it was converted by the Miners League into a storage depot. The Tunnel Rats moved in, and the miners couldn't get their mining gear out in time, and so you have to go on a quest to go help the miners and get their mining gear back from the Kobolds. Also, these Kobolds are a part of the Axis of Awful, which is clearly a play on the Axis of Evil, and it's an alliance between Trogs, Kobolds, Gnolls, and Murlocs in the Silverstream Mine area. The primary plan for the Kobolds was to ally with the Murlocs, who would then be armed with Gnoll-forged weapons of indestructible copper that the Trogs had mined for them, but then you as the adventurer foil all of their alliance plans, and none of it happens. But I personally would love an expansion where all of those races allied and we had to fight them for the expansion as the main villain. That would be fun. And I also wanted to mention Commander Nazrim, because they are also part of the Axis of Awful and appear to be the leader of the Kobolds in Loch Modan. But the main reason they're here is because they're a reference to Nazrin from the Tauhau Bullet Hell shooter games. She is a mouse yokai, I don't know if I'm saying any of this correctly, who leads ordinary mice, and her theme music is called A Tiny Tiny Clever Commander, which this quest for Commander Nazrim is called A Tiny Clever Commander. So it's clearly a reference to that. And so that's why the Tunnel Rats and Commander Nazrim are number 9. 8. Number 8 is Kaghanishu, and Kaghanishu is a powerful snowbold shaman of the Magmoth herd found in Magmoth in the Borean Tundra. He killed Farseer Grimwalker and bound his spirit to a totem. And so there's a quest where you have to kill Kaghanishu and use the quest item that he drops to free Grimwalker's spirit. And it does appear that he's also a reference, this time being a reference to Rakanishu, a character from Diablo 2. And I do think it's funny that the only thing he can say is his own name, kind of like a Pokemon. He's just like, Kaghanishu, Kaghanishu. He also has a bowl of something on his head. I don't really know what it is. It looks like a bunch of flower petals or herbs or something, but he wears it as a hat, so that's also pretty unique. But there's not much else to say about him. There's some fire totems around with some other kobolds doing some fire candle magic. I don't know what they're doing, but I think Kaghanishu and all the kobolds around here are pretty cool, and so that's why I put them at number 8. 7. Number 7 are the White Whisker Kobolds, and the White Whisker are a group of kobolds found at the Cold Tooth Mine in Alterac Valley. And Cold Tooth Mine is a storage depot for the Horde, and it was once an ideal place to store extra supplies, but with the fighting between the Frostwolves and the Stormpikes, Frostwolves do not always have the spare warriors to station at the mine and protect it, so control of the mine often falls to the Alliance or to the White Whisker Kobolds. And I really just wanted to put these kobolds on the list because I have very specific memories of fighting these kobolds in Alterac Valley and kind of a nostalgic feel. And I always thought it was cool to go down to the mine and like fight through all the kobolds and stuff, all while everybody's yelling at you like, those people are at the mine, they're wasting their time, they're losers, which is probably true, but it was pretty fun still. And that's really all I got to say about it. So that's why the White Whisker Kobolds are number 7.
6.
Number 6 are the Dry Whisker Kobolds, and the Dry Whisker Kobolds are a group of kobolds found in the Arathi Highlands, and they're allied with mountain giants Fazruk and Thenin, who trapped Mizrael deep beneath the Arathi Highlands. And if you don't know who Mizrael is, she is the princess of the earth who was driven to madness by the old gods. The mountain giants, who were crafted by the Titans to protect the world, trapped her deep beneath the Arathi Highlands. Only through some crystal shards is she able to speak with the surface world. And so if you remember back in the day doing all those quests, you would have to talk to the shards, and then you had to go get shards from the kobolds and moats of Mizrael. So it was all tied into this specific quest line. And so I have a bit of nostalgia with these kobolds. I always loved Arathi Highlands. It was one of my favorite zones. So I always remember doing this quest line with these kobolds. But I also love the kobolds just walking with the mountain giants. It was always one of my favorite scenes from classic WoW in general. And so I had to put them on the list, and so that's why they're number 6.
5.
Number 5 is Granny Scribbles, and Granny Scribbles is a kobold grandmother that's telling a bunch of stories to some kobold children in the Ringing Deeps. And Granny Scribbles tells you a bunch of stories that you kind of play out through a series of quests. So she's like, Dripsy forgot her candle, gather round, tenderfoots, and Granny Scribbles will tell you a story of what happens when Dripsy forgot her candle. Dripsy, little tenderfoot, like you, who wander away from tribe. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even really like the quest that she gives that much, which is why I put her at number 5, but I just like the vibe of Granny Scribbles. You know what I mean? I think she gives off that, like, old person telling all the kids how it used to be type of thing, like, you didn't even know what it was like back in the day when they'd take your candle, you know you know what I mean? I also like all the stuff happening around Granny Scribbles. There's like a bunch of different kobolds, there's moles sleeping, there's wax statues. Like, it's actually a really cool place as well. And there's like candles hanging. And so that kind of factored into this as well. So that's why Granny Scribbles and all of the kobolds around her are number 5.
4.
Number 4 are the Blue Wax Kobolds, and the Blue Wax Kobolds are a group of kobolds at Candle Rock in High Mountain. And normally the Blue Wax are hostile kobolds, but they turn friendly when the player puts on the Skull of Bossing Around. And you can see the big candle right in the center there, and I love the way that looks. It's just kind of glowing, and I mean, it's really just a big candle, but it looks cool. And the Blue Wax have some interesting history. So they've lived at Candle Rock for a long time, and they have rat pets. They also eat rats, so it's a little weird. Don't ask questions. And one day, a Drogbar group arrived at the cavern and claimed it as their own, forcing the kobolds to take their candles and hide. However, the Drogbar did not have candles, and so the darkness began to follow them until it finally swallowed them whole, allowing the kobolds, safe with their candles, to move back in. To this day, the Blue Wax claim that if a kobold's candle goes out, or if they lack a candle altogether, the darkness will eat them. And I kind of think they're right, because there's a little area with 6 candles, and if you extinguish all of them, a void wraith called Devouring Darkness appeared. So they're actually onto something. I also think it's cool that they actually have blue wax you can see them crafting with, and they have blue flames, so I like that. And that's why the Blue Wax Kobolds are number 4.
3.
Number 3 are the Waxtail Kobolds and Torch Snarl, and they're located at the Warrens, which is the capital of the kobold civilization in Ringing Deeps. And one of the reasons that I picked them is just because of where they lived. Like, it is a phenomenal kobold capital. It's like everything you would imagine a kobold capital to be. There's big, cauldrons of wax, there's candles hanging all around, there's kobold houses on the mountains. It's just phenomenal. I love this place. It's one of my favorite places I've seen in the War Within. And then you have Torch Snarl, who is one of the Candle King's enforcers, and he's one of the new big buff kobolds, so it's kind of funny to see this giant buff kobold just fighting everybody. And he's got a big candle on his head. He's sitting by the kobold throne. And so I wanted to have at least one buff kobold on this list, and so I thought he would just be a great choice. But yeah, this place just has so much kobold energy. It feels like a hobbit hole for kobolds. You know what I mean? Like, it has that same type of aesthetic, and so that's why the Waxtail Kobolds and Torch Snarl are number 3.
2.
Number 2 are the Kobolds of Elwyn Forest, and the Kobolds of Elwyn Forest are a clan of kobolds found both in Elwyn Forest and Westfall, and they were working with the Defias Brotherhood. And I had to put these on the list pretty high up because I know a lot of people remember kobolds in Elwyn Forest. Like, when you go to Elwyn Forest, you probably remember kobolds. Like, half of the zone just feels like kobolds, so how could I not put these at number 2, right? And so some of them carry gold dust and large candles, and their leader, a big gold-tooth kobold named Goldtooth, is in possession of Bernice's necklace, which is actually a pretty funny quest where you talk to Billy, who's this little kid, and he's like, I was playing near the Fargo Deep Mine, and I think I saw the old lady's necklace. Don't ask me how it got there, it wasn't me, but then this kobold took it, go get him. And so I guess you could include Goldtooth on the list as well, because he is a kobold in Elwyn Forest, but overall, I just think these are very nostalgic classic kobolds and probably one of the most notorious kobolds in the game. So that's why the kobolds of Elwyn Forest are number 2. And number 1 is Ol Waxbeard, and Ol Waxbeard is the first boss in the Dark Flame Cleft dungeon in the Ringing Deeps. And according to the adventure guide, it says, howdy, sit a spell, hear about Ol Waxbeard. Kobolds respect this old timer for taming Wick, the rowdiest mole in creation. Waxbeard's seen folks come and go. Now Candle King's in charge. That don't change nothing. You still need to stay off his property. Wire here. Go on, get. And this is just the most Crendor thing I've ever seen in World of Warcraft. Like, if I had to design a boss, this is probably what I would design. Just like old man kobold on his mole with a mining pick riding around, attacking you, and like mining carts are flying out and hitting you, and he's like, oh boy. And so as soon as I saw this guy, I was like, I got it. This is number 1. This is number 1 on top 10 kobolds. And so that's why Ol Waxbeard is number 1. 10. Number 10 are the Fell Corruptors, which are servants of the Burning Legion in the Blade's Edge Mountains. And I've always found these mobs really cool for a few reasons. One is they are wearing the Tier 3 Warlock set, which I think looks kind of wacky and cool. And number 2 is I always felt they were a little odd in Blade's Edge to just stumble across these Fell Corruptors, and I don't know, they felt a little out of place, but they also felt, I think, more interesting because of how out of place they felt. Does that make sense? And so the whole idea behind them is that they're just going around and corrupting stuff. And so there's a quest where you just got to go kill them and kill the things that they've corrupted, like the Scale Wings or the Dagger Maw. And I was actually going to put these guys on unusual mobs in World of Warcraft, which is a list that I made a few weeks ago. But then I was thinking about it and I'm like, these guys are really cool though. And I was like, I could just make a cool mobs in World of Warcraft list. And so that's why I made this list, as well as one other mob that I'll mention when we get there. But either way, I love these mobs. Whenever I think of Blade's Edge, I always think of these mobs, and so that's why I put them at number 10. 9. Number 9 are the Mosshair Mammoths, and the Mosshair Mammoths are mammoths located in the Yonaran Plains. And I can still remember seeing the artwork for these back when they introduced Dragonflight, and it was probably one of my favorite things that was being shown for the game, which shows, you know, the type of things I look for in World of Warcraft. People are like, you look at the delves or the mythic dungeons? I'm like, dude, they got some cool mammoths with moss growing on them. Also, shout out to this weird spirit creature beast thing that was just running around knocking all the animals in its way up into the air. I figured he was worth including because he actually is pretty cool as well. And then we also have Trunkalump here, who is a baby mosshair mammoth, and he's just walking around, so we got to include him as well, right? But circling back to the actual mosshair mammoths, I just think they're really cool. I love when they take an animal and kind of blend nature into it. You know what I mean? How it's got moss and like rocky textures growing all over it. I think that's a really cool concept. And I'm sure there's some other animals in the game like this, but I hope they do it more because I like it. And so that's why the Mosshair Mammoths are number 9. 8. Number 8 is Tarlna the Ageless, and Tarlna the Ageless is a world boss found in Gorgrond. And at first I actually thought it was Tarina the Ageless, and apparently a bunch of other people did too, because on Wowhead the top comment is, it's Tarlna, not Tarina, stop calling them Tarina. And here's the thing, apparently Tarlna is a copy-paste from Yalnu, who is the final boss of the Everbloom dungeon. However, I think Tarlna's just cooler. Like, if you read the adventure guides, Yalnu's is just like, Yalnu was drawn to the Kirin Tor outpost in Gorgrond by strange energies radiating from the bluff. And then there's some other stuff there. But if you read Tarlna's, it says, it is said that before Tarlna arrived in Gorgrond, the entire region was a barren wasteland. It is said that verdant life springs up in the wake of each footstep of the ancient Genosaur. It is said that the creature is immortal, renewed like a forest in the aftermath of a great blaze. Much is said of Tarlna, but little is truly known or understood. And I think that's awesome. I love when we get really cool, mysterious lore about this world boss. And sure, we end up killing it and being like, whatever, it's not immortal, but I still think it's really cool. And so that's why Tarlna is number 8. 7. Number 7 are the Raging Ancients, and the Raging Ancients are ancient protectors attacking Splinter Tree Post in Ashenvale. And not only are they attacking it, but they are throwing massive boulders at it, and that's the cool part here. And what makes it even cooler is the boulder actually hits something and shatters into a bunch of little rocks. I mean, they could have made it where, you know, the boulder just got thrown and then it hit and disappeared, right? But they actually added that little bit of detail, that little where you see the pieces of rock go flying as it crashes into something. I love that. Also, I love the jankiness of the boulder gets thrown and then it doesn't actually fly out of his hand for like 2 seconds. I just thought that was funny. And I don't know if it's because of Lord of the Rings with the Ents and the trees coming alive and stuff, but I've always really enjoyed Ancients in World of Warcraft. In fact, I did do a Pointless top 10 Ancients before, but these guys weren't even on the top 10 Ancient list. And now thinking back on it, I'm like, dude, I should have put these guys on there. Like, these are some of the coolest mobs in WoW. They're just boulder throwing trees. So yeah, I love these mobs. I think they're great. I actually stumbled across some trees in Stone Talon that were also throwing boulders, but I just like these more. So that's why the Raging Ancients are number 7. 6. Number 6 are the Yongal and the Shah-infested Yongal, which are just Yongal that have been infested by the Shah. And I actually stumbled across these guys the other day when I was looking for something else for Pointless Top 10, and I was like, dude, I forgot all about the Yongal. Like, they're actually really cool. And it does seem that Yongal is a mixture of Yak and Mongol, which, you know, Mongolian Empire. So, well, I guess it would be the Yongols then, not the Yongals. But, you know, tomato, it doesn't really matter. Although there's probably gonna be some guy in the comments like, technically the Mongol, I don't care. Although, you know what? I don't like when people say tomato. It's weird. Like, just say tomato. Like, I actually don't know anybody that says tomato. Do you know anybody that says tomato? Comment down below. Like, I genuinely don't know anybody that says tomato. I actually know more people that say like tomato or tomatoes than I do tomatoes. Anyway, we've gone completely off track. I think the Yongals are really cool, and I actually think the Shah-infested Yongals are really cool. I would play them as an allied race. Just, I know it makes zero sense, and it's just like they're literally just corrupted Yongals, but I just think they look awesome, and so that's why they're number 6. 5. Number 5 are Tengor and Nolixawan, and they are dinosaurs battling each other located in Zuldazar. And they're actually part of a wanted quest where you have to kill both of them, which I think it's just dumb. So the quest itself just says, to any hunters worthy of the challenge, find and defeat the dueling giant Direhorn and Devilsaur named Nolixawan and Tengor. Their never-ending battle has disrupted travel throughout Zuldazar. And I mean, I get it, right? They're disrupting travel throughout Zuldazar. People are like, I don't want to go that way. There's some dueling giant dinosaurs over there. But you know what? That's so cool, right? You have these two massive named giant dinosaurs. They have just been battling it out just for like who knows how long. They've been fighting for just, it could be years, it could be who knows how many years, right? And they're just still duking it out. They're in this intense battle, and then you just end it. You're just like, guys, calm down, we're shutting everything down. It's like, no, just let them keep fighting, dude. They could have just turned it into an event. They could have went HBO. They could have been like, come one, come all to the dinosaur fight. Like, it would have been awesome, but instead, they just take the easy way out. So you know what? That's why they're two of the coolest mobs in the game, and that's why Nolixawan and Tengor are number 5. 4. Number 4 are the Fel Totem Tarans, and the Fel Totem are part of the Blood Totem tribe that have allied with the Burning Legion, at which point they consume the blood of demons and become Felsworn, and then known as Fel Totem. And these are actually the other mob that I mentioned earlier, how I said 2 mobs inspired me to make coolest mobs in World of Warcraft, and this was actually the second one in addition to the Blade's Edge guys. So actually, that just made me realize that both of the things that inspired me to make this cool mobs list were corrupted by Fel energy. So I feel like if I was a mob in World of Warcraft, I would probably be corrupted by Fel energy. I'm not gonna lie. And I mean, they really do look cool. They have this green energy radiating from them. They have their horns, which are all morphed and jagged now, unlike the normal horns. They've got big claws. Like, who doesn't want big claws? It gives me Warhammer vibes where you get to like pay points or get stuff, and then you upgrade your guys to have claws or different types of mutations like prehensile tails. Like, it's awesome. But I'm also the guy that always found bad guys cooler. Like, I always hated the boring good guys. They were just kind of generic, but the bad guys had all the cool weapons and armor and all that stuff. So I don't know what that says about me, but I think it's cool. So that's why the Fel Totem Taran are number 4. 3. Number 3 are Devilsaurs, and Devilsaurs are these massive dinosaurs that are primarily located in the Ungoro crater. And I guess we technically had a Devilsaur on this list already when they was fighting the other dinosaur, but you know what's scarier than even fighting another dinosaur is having a massive elite level mob fighting you when you're not even a high enough level, especially if you're in hardcore WoW and you're like, I can't die, I'm like in the low 50s, high 40s, and then all of a sudden you hear the devil source stomping around and you're just like, uh-oh. In fact, I was able to find one of the most well-known dinosaurs here, King Mosh, who's also in Hearthstone. Although at this point, who isn't in Hearthstone? In fact, there's actually a ton of devil swords in World of Warcraft at this point, like numerous named ones, there's a bunch of different mounts and a whole bunch of stuff, but there's just something about these initial Ungoro Crater devil swords that really hits the most as like the coolest mobs, because you really get that immersion sense of this is their jungle, they're the king of the jungle, they're marching around, and if you get in their way, they are going to try to kill you. And I always thought that was really cool, so that's why the devil swords in Ungoro are number 3. Number 2 is Stonehead, and Stonehead is a giant located at the entrance to the Ember Ward in Revendreth. And I love this guy for a few reasons. Number 1 is when you first see him, you're like, wait, that's kind of weird. Why is there this big giant guarding this gate? And then you're like, whatever, I'll just run past him. And so you try to run past him, but he grabs you and he's like, no, pass. And then he just throws you back into the zone. And so then you're like, dude, how do I get past this guy? There's got to be some crazy quest I got to do. There's got to be some, insane way to get past him. Maybe you got to fight him. And it turns out you just got to disguise yourself as a rock. And my favorite part about the rock disguise is as you sneak past him, he just goes, rocks be busy today. And so this guy just checks all the boxes I have for a cool mob. Like, he's guarding this big gate, so you know he's kind of important, or he's at least going to be some sort of obstacle as you try to get past here. He's got the fun mechanic of picking you up and throwing you, and then the actual way of getting past them is really funny. So I just think all those things are great, and so that's why Stonehead is number 2. And number 1 are Fel Reavers, because why wouldn't I include another Fel thing on this list, right? And so if you don't know what a Fel Reaver is, it is this massive demonic machine that is marching around Hellfire Peninsula, and it's essentially like the Devil Soar of Hellfire, because you would just get to this zone, you'd be walking around, you'd be questing, and you would just hear, that's my best, impersonation of a Fel Reaver. And then you would just get killed. You'd get stomped on, they'd beat you up, and that was that. And it's actually interesting and important to note that back in Burning Crusade, the view distances were a lot less. So even though nowadays you can see across the entire zone, back then it was pretty common to just get hit by stuff that didn't appear on your screen until it was too close to really get away. And so I really do think it was a product of its time, where the viewing and rendering distances being so low, and then a lot of people just playing World of Warcraft even for the first time and stumbling around, not really knowing that much and being like, what is this? And giving people like post-traumatic stress. Like, Fel Reavers truly were one of the coolest mobs and still are one of the coolest mobs. And that's why they're number 1. Number 10 are the 2 ancients at the Cenarian expedition, Keleth and Ashian. And when I was thinking of doing pointless top 10 ancients, these were the first ones I put on the list, because I was like, I always remember going to Zanger Marsh and doing the quest where it's like Blessing of the Ancients, and then you got to get the Mark of Lore from the one and Mark of War from the other one, and you're like, oh, sweet, some free buffs, right? And they actually talk to each other. Keleth says, the wind speaks of our enemies' movements, Ashian. The Naga will attack again. And Ashian says, we do well not to be reckless. There's still much to learn about this land and about the enemy. And Keleth says, prudence should not mean granting our enemy unnecessary advantages. And Ashian says, we will act when we know what we need, old friend. Druids have proven wise and capable of... Wait, why are you talking over me? Hey, where you going? Hey, get back here. Keleth's kind of rude, man. He just started talking over us and walking away. I don't know. But outside of this, there's no real big lore implication or anything around these guys. They're just kind of 2 ancients chilling in the Cenarian expedition, but I just think they're memorable, and that's why I wanted to put them on this list, and maybe you think they're memorable too, and that's why they're number 10. Number 9 is Arcosan, and Arcosan is a very rare ancient of the Arcane, one of the few known in the Warcraft universe, and the only one that is friendly to players, albeit only to the Alliance. He is stationed at the Tower of Estalon in Feralis. His name is also likely a reference to the inverse trigonometric function arcosine, which, listen, I failed like basic algebra. I'm not gonna, I don't know what that means. Smart people out there, you probably know. Or I guess people just paid attention in school. Also probably know. But to me, this is crazy because he really is one of 3 ancients of the Arcane, the other 2 being Warp Splinter and Old Crystal Bark. Warp Splinter, a large ancient of the Arcane, is the 5th boss in the Botanica, and Old Crystal Bark is a rare elite located in Koldara. And apparently their origins are unknown, but they seem to be quite intelligent. So kind of a mysterious type of ancient, but still very smart. And I just like the way they look. They got these big crystals growing out of their face and out of their back. And, you know, they just look pretty neat. And they got the purple, pink colors kind of radiating from them. But I think they're pretty cool. And that's why they're number 9. 8. Number 8 is Big Baobab, and Big Baobab is an ancient of war located at the Shrine of Aesina in Ashenvale. And I thought his name was kind of wacky. I was like, dude, Big Baobab, what is this guy? And apparently his name is a play on the baobab tree, which is a large tree that grows in Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. And I thought I'd take this time to actually talk a little bit about ancients. So ancients are giant sentient demigod-like trees that serve as protectors of nature. They were among the first creatures of Azeroth and the first guardians of its life. The simple power of age and wisdom pouring from these truly magnificent beings can make one feel small and awestruck when standing next to them. Ancients are all connected to one another and can sense disturbances from the world from deep within their roots. Their memories are as long and winding as their branches, and a piece of their strength sometimes stays behind when ancients fall. So yeah, ancients are pretty cool, and Big Baobab is a pretty cool ancient as well. So that's why he's number 8. 7. Number 7 is the Wandering Ancient, and this is the ancient mount that you got for free back in Shadowlands. So something good actually came out of Shadowlands, and I love this mount. It changes with the seasons, so obviously right now it's autumn when I'm recording this, but in the winter he gets all these like cold bluish leaves, and then in spring and summer he gets all green and kind of, you know, vibrant and happy and stuff. It's a really cool mount because it changes with the seasons. This mount won the poll. It was also competing with Soaring Spelltome, Nerubian Swarmer, Curious Caterpillar, and Gooey Slime Saber. The Slime Saber and the Spelltome were actually added eventually down the line, and the Caterpillar actually chills out in the Ancient. He's like on the back up in there, having a good time chilling in the Ancients, so they did add in the Caterpillar in a way. But I still would love a Caterpillar mount, I'm not gonna lie. But I think most importantly with this mount, I feel like I'm going to Isengard, and that's why it's number 7. 6. Number 6 are the Coral Ancients, otherwise known as Reef Walkers, and these are found in Nazjatar. And I really like these because they just feel so unique compared to a lot of the other Ancients. Like, usually the Ancients have some sort of variation of like, oh, the branches are different, or they got different faces and stuff, but these legit look different because they're coral and they're underwater. These are essentially underwater trees, right? I don't actually know if that's true, but I imagine they are. But some of the Coral Ancients got sea stars on them. They got these seaweed beards. They got coral growing out of them, which I guess is like coral growing on coral, or I don't know how it works, but Nazjatar was actually another one of those places that had a lot of cool stuff in it, a lot of cool art, but until you got flying, the zone was absolutely miserable to go through. But now that you have flying and you're able to just kill everything very easily, it's actually a really cool zone. And they got these Coral Ancients in it. They got a whole bunch of other stuff that'll probably make some other pointless top 10 lists. And that's why the Coral Ancients are number 6. 5. Number 5 is Elethir, and Elethir is probably one of the coolest ancients in the game. At least I think so. He's an ancient, a treant, and the archdruid of lore. He resided in the ancient grove Thastala, where he communed with nature and instructed his acolytes in the way of healing and the preservation of lore. And speaking of lore, it's actually pretty sad what happens to him. So a vile harpy coven led by Witch Mother Magula emerged and sought to claim his grove as their own. They inflicted a petrifying disease, which given time would destroy the infected. Not being able to save everyone, Elethir asked a class leader, you, to prioritize saving his elder disciples so they could protect the grove in his absence and to slay Magula. And this pretty much dominoes the Emerald Nightmare into happening and Xavius and all this stuff. And so after a while, Elethir is consumed by the nightmare and he starts hearing voices of the twisted trees and all this crazy stuff. But with the Emerald Nightmare gone eventually, the corruption disappears and the afflicted were saved. Those taken by the nightmare that had a strong tie with the dream also survived, and their spirits forever live on in the Emerald Dream, and Elethir is seen within the Emerald Dream. So now he's just chilling there. But aside from that, Elethir looks really cool. He's got like mana coursing through him. He's got like a really cool beard. He's got the eyebrows that are like just as long as his beard, and his tree top part looks pretty cool. Like overall, I think he just looks pretty sick on top of just being a really cool lore character. And that's why he's number 5. 4. And speaking of corrupted ancients, at number 4, we have Oakheart. And Oakheart is an ancient who formed from an offshoot of Shaladrasil itself. Oakheart had survived the Sundering, the Cataclysm, and countless blights. the ancient was able to weather these storms by drawing strength from the essence of the dream itself, but now that wellspring has become his undoing. And I actually love the aesthetic of this place. Like, it's so creepy. You have the red with the mist and everything, and he's just chilling back there, and you're like, man, this is going to be one scary fight. But then you realize that he has some of the worst puns that you will ever hear. And I quote, "My bark is worse than my bite. It's time we get to the root of the problem. You have been rooting around here too long. Too mulch. I think I have a crush on you. Heh. And I want to say something clever, but I am stumped." So, I mean, they really should just give him Perry Gatner's stand-up comedy act over in Shatrath City, but for now, he's just a dungeon boss, and a pretty cool ancient, and that's why he's number 4. 3. Number 3 is Agranox, and Agranox is the first boss in the Cathedral of Eternal Night, and according to the Dungeon Journal, this ancient served the Night Elf priestess of the Temple of Elune, tending to the beautiful Hanging Gardens. But after the malevolence of the Legion infected the cathedral, the Guardian absorbed fell energy through his roots. Now, the twisted Agranox spreads corruption throughout the sanctuary he once protected, believing he has finally achieved his ideal state. And so, even though that's pretty sad, right? Like, this tree is trying to do good and protect the place, and then he sucks up all his fell energy, and now he's all evil, and he thinks this is his ultimate form, essentially. I think that's pretty cool. Like, out of a lot of the lore they've written into the game, I think that's a pretty cool piece of lore. In fact, when he dies, he drops the Agranox's unsullied heartwood, and it says, "Deep within, it is still pure." So, pretty much saying his heart has remained pure despite all of the corruption that is coursing through his body. But, I mean, overall, he looks pretty cool, right? He's got, like, all this steam or fell energy. I don't know what's shooting out of him. And he's got all the fell, like, coursing through his... I was going to say veins. I don't think he's got veins. Actually, do trees have veins? Do trees have veins? Vascular bundle is a bundle of xylem and phloem cells that are essentially the veins and arteries of the leaves. So I guess he does. And that's why he's number 3, and why you've learned something about trees today, unless you already knew that. 2. Number 2 is from the latest patch as of the making of this video, which is the Emerald Dreams Spruce Crown. And Spruce Crown is part of the Super Bloom, which begins at the start of every hour, and once the event begins, Spruce Crown, an Ancient of Life, travels around a Mirdrasil, the World Tree, starting a ritual to bloom life. You help him with various tasks, such as watering flowers, pulling weeds, and defending against primalists who refuse to stand by while we empower the tree with life. I also love that after you help him empower the tree with life, he starts shooting up 2 little fireworks. Like, he's just like, woohoo, there goes 2 little fireworks, waha. But I think Spruce Crown's great. I love this guy. If you talk to him, he says, "When one gets to be as old as I, every branch and root aches for no reason." Which may be the most relatable quote I've seen in World of Warcraft. But still, he says, it would be no excuse to lay down our duties. Damn, dude, he's playing through the pain. You know, you'd think he's just this big tree walking around, but really his entire body hurts. And he's just pushing through, man. What a legend. I also thought this would be a good point to give a shout out to the Ancient of Bor and Yor, who are also in the Emerald Dream. And the Ancient of Bor makes you wait for him to continue. And he says, "The thing was that I think that I forgot that the thing was that I think that I forgot that the thing." And he just keeps going. And then the Ancient of Yor just says, "Back in my day, combat trainers were useful. Not anymore, though." So just a couple great side additions to the Emerald Dream as well. And that's why Spruce Crown and the Emerald Dream Ancients are number 2. 1. And number 1 is Onu, and Onu is an Ancient of Lore located in the Grove of the Ancients in Darkshore, and he's a member of the Circle of Ancients, which is a group of Ancients that meet at the Grove of the Ancients. And obviously you might be wondering, well, what happened to him during the Battle of Darkshore, where everything got burned down, right? Well, during the events of the Battle of Darkshore, he was targeted by the Horde, but seemingly survived the attempt. So what a badass. This dude survived this, big Horde attack. And he looks pretty cool, right? He's got the lanterns on his branches or whatever you want to call those on top of him. He's got a cool leaf beard. He's got a cool face where he's just like, And I'm not gonna lie, one of the reasons I picked them is just because of the Grove of the Ancients. Like, this place is awesome. It's got all these ancients kind of looming over, and you can see their leaves falling down. This one's actually holding up a pillar, and they're all kind of blinking as well, which is, it's actually a little creepy, to be honest. The reason for this, however, is actually pretty cool. So the Grove was shielded from most of the devastation caused by the Cataclysm, due in large part to the power of the ancient guardians residing therein. Protecting the Grove required an enormous amount of energy, though, and as a result, most of the Guardians have gone into a sort of slumber. So overall, the Grove of Ancients is awesome, Onu seems really cool, and this place just felt like it encapsulated everything about Ancients, and for that reason, I decided to put it at number 1. 10. Number 10 are Murlocs, and I put Murlocs at number 10 because they still feel a little weird in terms of being a playable race to me, but I could still see them being playable, and I think it would be pretty fun. I mean, we have characters like Sir Finley Murgleton, right? So it's not like it's completely out of the picture. In fact, according to the Warcraft wiki, Murlocs are an ancient race of Azeroth who evolved to survive in Azeroth's dangerous aquatic environments, and they may actually predate trolls. And so yeah, I do think it would be fun to have Murlocs. Maybe their mount could be like crabs, right? That would make sense. You ride around on a crab. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe you could even play as a Gorlock, as an alternate skin type of thing. I will say there's the Jinyu, which are supposed to be like evolved, more intelligent forms of Murlocs, but I don't know, they don't hit the same. Like, I don't mind the Jinyu also being a playable race, but there's just something about being able to be like a little shaman that's like blah, 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 blah. It's like casting spells and stuff. I don't know, I just think that would be more fun, even if you did have Jinyu as a playable race as well. So that's why I decided to put Murlocs at number 10. 9. Number 9 is Quilboars, and I picked Quilboars number 1 because I would love to be able to play a Quilboar, which is why I put them on the list, but number 2, I just think they'd be a really fun race, especially if you were on the Horde, to be able to play. I mean, I could see people playing as a Quilboar warrior or a hunter or, you know, a druid, a shaman. There's even Quilboar warlocks over on the, you know, starter island. So I mean, they would have plenty of classes to be able to play. You could even make a case for a Quilboar Death Knight, since they are, you know, with Razorfen Downs and all the undead stuff over there. You could probably come up with some lore behind that, and it would still make more sense than Shadowlands lore. I think for the mount, they would probably have a boar, which would, you know, probably make the most sense. They are Quilboar. And honestly, I used to just not really like Quilboar that much, but after doing Pointless Top 10 Quilboar and learning about Quilboar, I really felt the urge to be like, I would love to play a Quilboar, and so that's why I had to put them on the list, and that's why the Quilboar are number 9. 8. Number 8 are the Naga, and I think the Naga have been contemplated as a playable race since the start of World of Warcraft. In fact, John Stats in the World of Warcraft diary said that Naga were among the first 20 races conceptualized for World of Warcraft. In particular, they were said to be Chris Metzen's favorite idea for a playable race. However, due to technical limitations, primarily their tails and the way the armor fit, they were scrapped during early development. And that is one of the things that I thought about, right? It was like, oh, you know, how are they gonna have their armor fit and all this stuff? But I think Drakthir is probably the best example we now have of a race that kind of fits that mold, where it was like, how are they going to wear gear? How's that going to work? But it ended up working. And so I think if there's any time for Naga to become a playable race, it's probably right now. As for what type of mount they would use, I'm actually not too sure. Maybe they wouldn't use a mount. There's some weird like fish creature mounts they could go with. So I'm sure they'd be able to figure something out. But either way, that's why I decided to put the Naga at number 8. 7. Number 7 are the Tortolan, and I picked the Tortolan because, I don't know, memes aside from like a turtle made it to the water and all that stuff, right? I just think they're cool. They got the ability to be like shamans or priests or druids. They do have, you know, Tortolan standing around with like warrior armor and spears and stuff, so they can be warriors as well. I don't know. I like the Tortolan. I thought a lot of people liked them, but then I looked on the internet, which, you know, great idea. And so many people are just like, I hate Tortolan. They're like pandas, but they're turtles. It's like Pandaren all over again. Like, I don't know. What did Tortolan ever do to you? They act like they were questing at level 32 in Stranglethorn in Classic WoW, and a Tortolan just came up and like ganked them in the back or something. It's like, I'll never like Tortolan ever again. But you know what? I like Tortolan, and that's all that matters for this pointless list on this pointless video. And I'm not sure what type of mount they would have. I guess there'd be crabs, unless the Murlocs already took the crab mounts, but dinosaurs would probably be cool. I mean, there's a bunch of dinosaurs all over the place, so that would probably work. So either way, that's why the Tortolan are number 7. 6. Number 6 are the Arakoa, and I picked the Arakoa because I've always really liked the Arakoa as a race in World of Warcraft, which I guess that's like most of the things on this list. I probably wouldn't put something on this list that I didn't like. But yeah, I love that they're these like humanoid bird people, and they got all these twitchy movements. They're just like looking around. They got these big long fingers, kind of like salad fingers from back in the day, or almost like E.T., I guess. They're trying to phone home. I think for their mount, they would probably have something like the Raven Lord, you know, just a big raven they would ride around on. That would make sense to me. I also saw a cool idea I liked online, which was a racial ability for inscription for the Arakoa, because they'd be able to use their own feathers as quills, so they could like write up inscription stuff real quick. I thought that was cool. Granted, I say all this, and I already know that the next playable races we're gonna get are gonna be like another type of dwarf and then just like another type of elf or something. But hey, you know what? It's fun to have an imagination and think of what could be, and so that's why the Arakoa are number 6. 5. Number 5 are the Ethereals, and I think the Ethereals are another race that people have wanted as a playable race for quite some time. They've also been around since the Burning Crusade, and it's interesting because there's actually a post on Wowhead from a few months ago. It was in December of 2024 where they data mined patch 11.1, and it showed a bunch of Ethereals in armor and having different bandage types and a whole bunch of stuff. So they got people speculating like, maybe we will actually get playable Ethereals at some point. I do think the customization ability of being able to like change the glow of your Ethereal and change the bandage colors of your Ethereal on top of being able to equip different armor would be pretty cool. I'm not really sure what the Ethereal's mount would be, but there is this mount from Hearthstone, which maybe they would take inspiration from, that actually looks really cool. It's like an animal that's got the same type of Ethereal glowy bandage look to it. And then maybe as a racial passive, they would get discounts at places since they're very into like trade and economics. There's definitely a lot of stuff to work with, and so that's why I decided to put Ethereals at number 5. 4. Number 4 are the Sethrak, and the Sethrak are a race of serpent people living in Vol'dun in Zandalar, and this is definitely one of the races that I think many people want. Whenever I see any threads or posts about playable races, the Sethrak are probably in like the top 5 every time. And I would be all for the Sethrak as somebody who is a big fan of Lizardmen, Seraphon in the Warhammer universe. Like I would love to play as a snake person. And their mounts would be the Kralisk mounts, which are these big sand scorpion looking things. I actually don't know what they are, but they literally already ride them as mounts, so it's obvious that that would be the mount choice. And I do think it is kind of odd that we got Volparen as a playable race, and then we just didn't get Sethrak. Like, I thought they would have done both of them, or they would have given us Sethrak at some point, but I don't know. I think we're at a point where if they do add a bunch of playable races, now with Drakthir being a thing, Sethrak are more likely, because even if they have some armor limitations, people would be like, oh, well, look at Drakthir. They worked out, right? So I don't know. I still want Sethrak. I think they're cool. Go snake people, and that's why they're number 4. 3. Number 3 are the Centaur, and I picked the Centaur here because I feel like they're pretty unique compared to a lot of the other playable races, because they're Centaur. They literally walk around on horse legs, and they have the upper human body, so I think they have the cool possibility of being their own mount, kind of like what they wanted to do with Taran back in the day with planes running, right? Like they would just activate mount form and they would just go running and have faster speed. And I definitely think it's a bigger possibility now that we have the new Centaur models, the Maruk Centaur from the Onaran Plains compared to the old Centaur of Desolus, which, you know, don't look as great. However, I will say one of the issues I was thinking about was flying. I'm not really sure how they would fly. I guess they could maybe like druid form, turn into an eagle or some, you know, a hawk or something like that. But I don't think they'd be able to use normal mounts unless they just stood on top of the mount, but that would be kind of weird. But, you know, maybe something like turning into a hawk or eagle would be the trade-off for getting to play a Centaur. Like, you gotta just give up having a flying mount you can fly around on. I have no idea. They could figure something out. Either way, that's why Centaur are number 3. 2. Number 2 are the Tuskar, and I have always wanted to play a Tuskar ever since Wrath of the Lich King. It's just probably one of my most wanted playable races. Obviously, I'm big into fishing, So they would have fishing bonuses. I'd imagine them having like warriors and shamans and hunters and druids. And obviously we already know that their mount would be the Audic mount because we've seen them riding Audics all over. You can even get your own Audic mount. So that's pretty easy to figure out. The only thing I'm kind of struggling with is figuring out their other racial abilities, because obviously I mentioned fishing, but maybe they can like swim underwater real fast. Maybe they can breathe underwater. Maybe they have bonus armor or stamina from their thick blubber, right? Maybe they've got some sort of tusk thing, like they can charge in with their tusk charge. I have no idea. I'm just coming up with these off the top of my head. I'm sure they can figure out some better ones. But yeah, I would love playable Tuskar. I think a lot of people would love playable Tuskar, and it doesn't seem like it's too far off from a realistic possibility, but that might just be my hopium. So that's why the Tuskar are number 2. And number 1 are the ogres. And I think ogres have been the most wanted playable race in World of Warcraft history, because this is dating back to like even before World of Warcraft existed. There were probably people that were like, yo, in World of Warcraft, I can't wait to play an ogre, right? Because you got to play as ogres in Warcraft 3 and the Warcraft games. So people were like, oh, imagine I can get to play an ogre. In fact, from the John Stats Q&A, ogres were originally going to be the 4th horde race in vanilla, hence why they have so many animations. However, when the time came to animate and model female ogres, they couldn't do it within the 6-week deadline, and so we ended up getting trolls instead. And so you would think at some point in the next 20 years, we would have gotten ogres as a playable race, but we still don't have them. And I think ogres would just be a great addition. They could ride on thunder lizards or maybe like cleft hoofs or just some mammoth type of beast, right? And I imagine they could pretty much be every class. I think an ogre death knight would be the funniest of all of them. Or maybe even an ogre druid. That would probably be funny too. But I think we're well overdue for ogres. So even though I would want Tuskar the most, I would be pretty happy with ogres getting put into World of Warcraft. So that's why I decided to put them at number 1. 10. Number 10 are the Blackmaw tribe Furbolgs located in Azshara. And the Blackmaw tribe is actually one of the few Furbolg tribes to have escaped corruption after the Third War. If you don't know what the Third War is, pretty much the entire Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos campaign is the Third War. In fact, during the War of the Ancients, the Blackmaw fought against the Burning Legion, and Ung Ak served as their representative in the Kaldori Resistance. And so after the Third War, they settled in northwestern Azshara, and they were just chilling, having a good time, but then the Bilgewater cartel moved in and they were like, hey, we're gonna start building stuff here. And so they started getting aggressive, they started attacking, and then the Night Elves attempted to form an alliance with the Blackmaw tribe, but the Horde spies sabotaged the meeting and they killed a bunch of Furbolgs in the process. In fact, this is an actual quest you get to do as the Horde, and it's called the Blackmaw Double Cross, and you go there and you disguise yourself as a Night Elf and you're like, hey, Ungarl, the Blackmaw chieftain, you're a big dumb idiot and you're dumb and stupid. And he's like, what, are you kidding me? I'm not dumb and stupid. You are. We're not going to ally with you. And that's pretty much it. And so yeah, there's a lot of history here with the Blackmaw tribe, and it all gets messed up by the Horde. So that's why they're number 10. 9. Number 9 are the Winterpelt Furbolgs located in the northeastern Azure Span on the Dragon Isles. And I'm not gonna lie, the main reason I picked these Furbolgs is they are an updated version of Furbolgs in Dragon Isles, and I just love the aesthetic of this place. And the Winterpelt Furbolgs were unique amongst the Furbolg tribes of the Dragon Isles due to their isolationist nature, and after the Primalists arrived in the Azure Span, they sought to recruit the Furbolg tribes of the Span into their forces, and while the Rustpine clan accepted, the Winterpelt tribe refused, and then Stormshacker Rinia was like, nah, I ain't dealing with this, and she pretty much went in and took control of them, and mind control corrupted them and everything, but eventually you kill her and you help free them, and then they go back to just being normal. In fact, Son of a Snowden, which is Donovan Snowden's, I guess, relative or son. I would guess son because it's like son of a Snowden. They did a little play on words there, but he helps you figure out their language and you form diplomatic relations with them. But I really do love the aesthetic here for the Winterpelt. You've got their cool houses, you got the fire, you got the snow coming down. I just love it. So that's why the Winterpelts are number 9. 8. Number 8 are the Thistlefur tribe, and the Thistlefur tribe are a tribe of hostile, corrupted Furbolgs who reside in Ashenvale. And I'm sure if you've ever leveled past like level 15 in World of Warcraft, you have been to Thistlefur Hold. And the Thistlefur can't catch a break, man. So the Night Elves are pretty much like, yo, these Furbolgs are growing way too much. We need to eliminate the threat of their chieftain, Dal Bloodclaw, and go kill them and limit their numbers. So you do that for the Alliance, or if you're on the Horde, they're just like, hey, they took our rope and they're just getting in the way, and they just block the path to Splinter Tree Post. Just go kill them. However, during the invasion of Outland, Brol Bearmantle, a druid, figures out that the idol of Remulos was corrupting them, and so he frees them of their corruption. However, not long after, the Furbolgs killed a group of Darkspear trolls and stole their troll charms, but troll charms are dangerous for non-trolls and corrupted them again. And so eventually the Night Elves and their Worgen allies removed the troll charms and yet again freed them from their corruption. So I'm sure they'll get corrupted again eventually, but hey, you know what? They got some cool owl totems. Look at those. Those are cool owl totems. And that's why they're number 8.
7.
Number 7 are the Smolderhide Furbolgs, and the Smolderhide reside at a village called Smolderhide Thicket in Valshara. And the Smolderhide's leader, Chieftain Graw, acquired a strange totem that corrupted many of the residents of the thicket. But Elder Sook, who you can find nearby, says, "Can I ask for your help, stranger? My tribe is the Smolderhide." I don't know why he sounds like this. He should probably be like,
"Recently, my brothers found bad magic. They have gone mad with rage. They attack the druids that are our friends."
And so you go in there, you defeat Chieftain Graw, and then Elder Sook takes over and plans to rebuild the village. And I really love the aesthetic of this village. And I know I say that a lot, but I love the lighting here. I love the little fire torches on the sides. I love all the totems and the houses. Like, I think this is actually where they upgraded the Furbolg houses, and then I think they got updated again for the Winterpelt Furbolgs, but either way, I love that they keep updating the Furbolg houses. Great job. I also love the way this Furbolg eats. Like, look at him go. He's just like, nom, nom, nom. I don't know. I love that. But either way, that's why the Smolderhide Furbolgs are number 7.
6.
Number 6 are the Timbermaw tribe, and the Timbermaw tribe you probably know from trying to get through Timbermaw Hold, which is the place that separates Fellwood from Winterspring and Moonglade. And so the Timbermaw story is actually pretty sad. They had the corruption of the Burning Legion pretty much creep into all the forests of Kalimdor, and they could feel the forest getting corrupted. And so they went into the safety of Timbermaw Hold, and they were just hiding out there. Yet eventually they weren't even able to talk to the spirit of the forest, and once they couldn't talk to that, they were like, our home is gone. And so even after the Burning Legion is defeated, the Timbermaw slowly start stepping outside, and they're just like, yo, what is going on out here? And they're wary of all strangers, which is why when you first go here, they attack you, and you're like, these Furbolgs are attacking me. But then you realize, like, oh, they're just kind of trying to be safe because they've dealt with so much trauma and corruption and stress that they're like, yo, we don't trust anybody. And so that's why you have to build up trust with them and reputation, and eventually you become friendly and revered and exalted, etc. And as somebody who back in the day didn't really read quests or story and just ran through here, I was like, they're just getting in the way. But now I'm like, damn, dude, that sucks. I feel bad for them. And so that's why the Timbermaw tribe are number 6.
5.
Number 5 are the Stillpine tribe, and the Stillpine are a group of Furbolgs located in the Azurmist Isles. And the Stillpine lived in peace up until the Bristlelim Furbolg tribe became corrupted and went to war with them. They also used to be friends with the Murlocs nearby, but the Murlocs actually took their food stores, and then they were also attacked by the Owl Beast that went crazy and started killing all of them as well, and they just can't catch a break. Everybody's attacking them. And so even though there's all this stuff going on, there is a prophecy that the Furbolgs keep falling back on, and it is that a hero will rise, not of Furbolg blood, and save the Stillpine tribe. And would you believe it? But that hero is you! As long as you're an alliance, Horde can't actually do this quest. And so you go into Stillpine Hold, you defeat this big two-headed dog beast thing called the Kirkin, and that's it. You have fulfilled the prophecy and saved the Stillpine. And I really wanted to put the Stillpine on this list because it's not common that you get to put something from the Azurmist Isle on a list of really anything, so that's why the Stillpine tribe is number 5.
4.
Number 4 are the Frostpaw tribe, and the Frostpaw are a group of polar Furbolgs located in the Grizzly Hills of Northrend. And for thousands of years, these Furbolgs have lived in peace within the city of Grizzlemaw with the other Furbolg tribes until corruption spread among them, and now driven with madness, they wage war with the Red Fang tribe to seek control of Grizzlemaw. And I'm not gonna lie, the main reason I love the Furbolgs here is this giant tree. I think when people think of Grizzly Hills, they always think of this big tree, and you've got all these little honeycomb lights all over, and the Furbolgs battling it out. And the actual lore behind the tree is pretty cool. So Fandral Staghelm and his druids took branches from the world tree Nordrassil and planted them over Serenite that began to appear across the world. And Serenite, as you probably remember from Northrend, is a metal, but it's also the blood of Yogg-Saron. However, without the blessings of the aspects, it was vulnerable to the old god's corruption, and it got corrupted. There's a lot of corruption in World of Warcraft, especially to the Furbolgs. And so initially it was called Andrasil, Vordrasil, which meant Crown of the Snow, but after learning that the roots of the tree had reached the prison of Yogg-Saron, the druids were forced to destroy the tree, and then it became named Vordrasil, which means Broken Crown. And so all that was left behind was the big tree stump, and that got taken over by the Furbolg tribes, and then, you know, it's corrupted, and so they got corrupted, and everybody's corrupted by the old gods, and that's where we are today. And I could have put the Red Fang tribe here too, but I just thought the Frostpaw tribe was cooler, so that's why they're number 4.
3.
Number 3 is Tur Ragepaw, and Tur is a Furbolg who can be found near Ursoc's den in the Grizzly Hills. And I'm sure many of you know who Ursoc is, but for those who don't, Ursoc was an ancient guardian, one of the several demigods that were among the first living creatures to roam Azeroth, and he was worshipped as a god by the Furbolgs of Grizzly Hills, which was the land he used to rule. And when you find him, he's all tied up, and he's like,
When I learned about my relatives here in the north, I came to learn more. What I found was warring tribes acting against our very nature. I have no hope left. Even great Ursoc has been tainted by this cursed place. I've lost all hope.
And so even though Ursoc died in the War of the Ancients, the Furbolgs of Vordrasil used the tree's dark magics to raise Ursoc back from the dead. But you do a quest with Tur Ragepaw where you use these purified Vordrasil ashes to cleanse the current version of resurrected, corrupted Ursoc and put his spirit to rest. And so after that, Ursoc's spirit resided in the Emerald Dream up until he gets corrupted and taken to the Emerald Nightmare, where you actually fight him in the Emerald Nightmare raid, and Tur Ragepaw is actually there. And Tur Ragepaw helps the adventurers take down the Nightmare corrupted Ursoc, and you can keep him alive to get an achievement called Scare Bear. And so yeah, I think Tur Ragepaw has to be one of the most important Furbolgs in the game, helping to save a bear god twice. And so that's why Tur Ragepaw is number 3.
2.
Number 2 are the Longclaw tribe, and the Longclaw are a group of Furbolgs located on Longclaw Island at the westernmost part of the Azure Span. And the Longclaw came to the island seeking shelter from the elemental corruption of the mainland, which we learned about earlier with the Winterpelt Furbolgs. And what I love about these Furbolgs is they're just kind of living in peace. Like, after learning about all the corrupted Furbolgs on this entire video and how many corrupted Furbolgs and gods and everything there is in World of Warcraft, we finally find some Furbolgs that are like, dude, can we just live normally? And they learn from the Tuskar how to fish, and so they're walking around and they're collecting shellfish with these big backpacks to put the shellfish into. They've got Furbolgs that are just going fishing, just trying to catch fish. Like, it's so nice to see Furbolgs living peacefully after learning about all the corruption that has happened to the Furbolgs in World of Warcraft. They even have their little Audic friends sitting around. Like, it's great. And so that's why I had to put the Longclaw tribe at number 2.
1.
And number 1 is the Winterfall tribe, and the Winterfall tribe are the Furbolgs that I always think of when I think of Furbolgs. In fact, I used to call them Furblogs. I've probably said Furblogs a few times accidentally in this video. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I've gotten better. But a lot of people also probably know the Winterfall because of the Winterfall Firewater, which was actually made by Zandivius, who is a satyr demon located in Felwood, which he then gave to the Winterfall tribe to, you guessed it, corrupt them. And so the Firewater is made up of corrupted creatures and elements of Felwood, but then when it's purified with the Frostfire Hot Spring water, it removes the toxins and makes it consumable. However, it does cause paranoia and gets you addicted, which is what happened to High Chief Winterfall. And so the Winterfall had these runners, which I'm sure many of you remember, and they would run between Felwood and Winterspring, and they would transport the Winterfall Firewater. And so yeah, I had to put these at number 1. I love Winterspring. I love seeing the Winterfall runners. I always remember questing and seeing them, and it was just, it's one of those things where when I think of Furbolgs, these are the first Furbolgs that pop into my mind. And so I was like, you know what? I gotta put them at number 1, and that's why the Winterfall tribe is number 1.
10.
Number 10 are the Storm Giants located in the Howling Fjord, and the Storm Giants are these massive giants that are just walking around the Howling Fjord ready to beat up anybody they come across. But Storm Giants, according to Wowpedia, are actually Titan-forged giants who are afflicted with the Curse of Flesh. And if you don't know what the Curse of Flesh is, it's a curse created by the old god Yogg-Saron, and the curse originated from the Forge of Wills and slowly spread through the Titan Forge, turning them from metal and stone to flesh beings. In fact, the Storm Giants were decimated by the Lich King, who had the Scourge raise them back into undeath and use their corpses to create mindless flesh giants. So that's pretty crazy. And of course, one of the big reasons I love these guys is these are pretty much the equivalent of the Fel Reavers from Hellfire Peninsula, or like Devil Swords in Ungoro. Like, they walk around, and if you're not paying attention, boom, you're probably dead to a storm giant. But I do love the way they look. They got big moose antler helmets. They got, like, barrels as shin guards. They got big beards. They're just really cool looking. They're like weird Viking giants, and that's why the storm giants are number 10.
9.
Number 9 was going to be Grossier and the Felrage Scrogs, which sounds like a band, but it's not. It is a Fel giant and a bunch of these Fel-infused giants, which I think look pretty cool. But the world quest for them spawning just never occurred, so instead, I decided to do Flog the Captain Eater. But I still wanted to give a little shout out to the Felrage Scrogs, of course. But Flog the Captain Eater is a sea giant located in Oceanus Cove in Azuna, and he can be found in combat with Captain Blindside and his crew of South Sea smugglers. And I kind of feel bad for Flog the Captain Eater because he's just trying to find the captain and eat him, right? Like, that's all he wants to do, but he's chained up. They're shooting him with cannons. They got a bunch of pirates fighting him. He probably just wants a fair 1v1 with the captain. But look at that. They're doing all these other things to him. So that sucks. Plus, he's got a sea star attached to his head. So that probably is uncomfortable. He's also a part of the Adventure of Azuna achievement, where you have to go around and complete a bunch of special encounters in Azuna. And so that's why Flog the Captain Eater and the Felrage Scrogs are number 9.
8.
Number 8 are Karoon and the Stone Giants, and I always remember Karoon in Grizzly Hills because they're all overlooking the big dwarven area, and they're throwing boulders down into the dwarven area, and it's one of my most memorable quests from Grizzly Hills, so I was like, well, I gotta put these giants on here. Plus, they have big pine trees sticking out of them, which is kind of insane. Like, these giants have literal pine trees growing on their backs. Like, that's got to be terrible for posture, right? Plus, then the roots are growing onto you. Look at that. He's got roots growing onto his face. It'd probably suck if a root just grew in front of your eye and then you just couldn't see anything, or you had to, like, rip it off, but it probably hurts or tears apart your rock skin off. I don't know how that works. But this is also just a really cool area. Like, you've got all the giants fighting against each other and throwing stuff at each other. And then you got the giants that are just throwing rocks and trees down at the iron dwarves below them. Like I said, it's one of the most memorable parts of Grizzly Hills for me. And so I had to put it on this list. So that's why Karoon and the Stone Giants are number 8.
7.
Number 7 is Fa Jarak, Lord of Smoke, and the fiery behemoths that are throwing fire boulders with him. So we're going back-to-back giants throwing stuff, but I love the fact that Fa Jarak is the Lord of Smoke, because think of how much smoke there is in the game, right? And this dude is the Lord of Smoke. So, I mean, I don't know how he chose him to be the Lord of Smoke. I don't know if he chose himself to be the Lord of Smoke. Maybe everybody else named him the Lord of Smoke. I don't know what it is. But his title is the Lord of Smoke. He's like the Snoop Dogg of Molten Giants. But he actually looks pretty cool. He's got this green fel energy kind of radiating through him, while all the other ones have red lava energy going through him. I don't know what it is. And you know what? I think Fa Jarak actually just has smoke coming off of him constantly. I think that's why. For some reason, I thought the smoke behind him was coming from the volcano, but I think it's just coming from him. So you know what? I guess I do get it. Maybe he really is the Lord of Smoke. And that's why he's number 7.
6.
Number 6 are the Ice Giants, and Ice Giants are located in Winterspring and Dragonblight, and these are probably some of my favorite giants in the game in terms of just generic giants, because, you know, obviously there's a lot of name giants and stuff we've been going through, but these are just your standard ice giants. There's nothing that special about them. They just walk around. They're made of ice, but I really love them for some reason. I'm always a person that likes ice things in games. Like, I like ice Pokemon and stuff like that. So I always remember going to Winterspring and getting the ice crystals and being like, oh god, the ice giants are gonna get you, but you could like stealth around them and stuff like that. So that was always really fun. And then I remember seeing them in Dragonblight as well, you know, just running around or standing in the big ice caverns. Like, I just really like ice giants, man. There's nothing else to it. There's nothing that crazy, but this one's stuck in the stairs, so that's not too good for him. Or I guess that's not stairs. It's like the temple cement. He's in there. He's not getting out. But either way, that's why the Ice Giants are number 6.
5.
Number 5 are the Molten Giants, and the Molten Giants are also known as Magma Giants or Magma Destroyers, according to Wowpedia, and they are native to the Firelands, but some have been pulled into Azeroth by Ragnaros, hence why they are in Molten Core. And I wanted to put these on the list because I always remember going to Molten Core way back in the day, and you walk in, and there's just those 2 Molten Giants standing there, just staring you down, and you're like, dude, this is going to be crazy, right? Like these two giants are standing in your way from going into the rest of the raid. And I always love that, like the two gatekeeper giants just blocking your path. And then once you're able to take them down, it just felt like the raid had begun. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, here we go. We're into Molten Core. And obviously there's more Molten Giants throughout Molten Core and everything like that. But for some reason, I always remember those first two. And I think it's because of those, you know, implications of what they are. They are the gatekeepers to the raid. And once you brought them down, you were doing Molten Core. And another fun little piece of information I found, Molten Giants are similar to Infernals in that their bodies are composed of stone while their souls are those of fire elementals. So that's pretty neat. So that's why the Molten Giants are number 5.
4.
Number 4 is Mokrash the Cleaver, and Mokrash is a sea giant found on Gennaro's Point, west of Booty Bay, in the Cape of Stranglethorn, right next to the Pointless statue where we talk about how inside Pointless things are treasure. You knew I had to put the giant on the Pointless Treasure Island here, right? You knew I had to do it. But he is one of the giants that sank Captain Heckleberry Smot's ships, and you are supposed to go kill him for a quest from Captain Heckleberry Smot's. And he yells out things such as, "Smots, I have your little belt. Come and get it. Smots, come out and play. Don't let this statue be my only company. Come out and play." And there's a few other quotes and taunts, but he's just trash talking Smots, right? But I do love how he's one of the old school sea giants that just is very aquatic bluish green, and he's just got this giant hammer, and he's got some armor made out of shells, and then he's got the giant green beard. I just think the old sea giants look pretty cool, so I wanted to put him on the list kind of as a representative of all the old sea giants. So that's why Mokrash the Cleaver is number 4.
3.
Number 3 are Thiazi the Lightning Bringer and Gamir, who is the king of the Storm Giants. And Thiazi is actually being ridden by Antioch, Grand Necrolord of the Scourge, and he lures his brother into a trap after he is converted into an undead flesh giant. And Thiazi is actually a reference to Thiazi, a giant from Norse mythology who tried to trick the gods by stealing their apples of youth. Meanwhile, Gamir, who is a reference to Ymir from Norse mythology, is trapped in a cage after his brother lured him into the trap, and then you help break him out, and then you go and you take out all of the Scourge all around while riding on top of Gamir. And I mainly wanted to put these guys high up on the list because one is the king of the Storm Giants, and the other one is his brother who's been corrupted, so there's a little cool lore thing going on here, and it all ties into the Lich King as well. So a lot of cool stuff here, and that's why Gamir and Thiazi are number 3.
2.
Number 2 is Torseg the Exiled, and Torseg the Exiled is a frost giant located in the Storm Peaks, and he's just chilling out, sleeping, and that's it. He's just chilling out, sleeping, and nobody really knows why. I've always wondered, how did Torseg get exiled? Like, what did he do? Did he do something so bad he got kicked out? Did he do something that people just didn't like? Like, why did Torseg get exiled? And now he just chills, being by the fire, staring into it, wondering, pondering, reflecting. Like, I don't know. I don't know what happened to Torseg. I did read a comment that said this is the only frost giant that has the giant label, which is kind of funny that none of the other frost giants have the giant label. But really though, I don't know if we'll ever find out about Torseg the Exiled. Maybe one day he will show up and he'll have some heroic arc in a future expansion. But until then, I like Torseg the Exiled. He's a good guy. Unless he did something bad, in which case I don't like him. But until then, he's number 2.
1.
And number 1 is Fosruk, and Fosruk is a mountain giant located in the Arathi Highlands, and in Classic WoW, he has a little kobold pack with him. There's Phoebos, who is a mage that casts damage spells and holds a staff with a green crystal at the top, which always makes me think of Skaven. Maybe they were also inspired by Skaven, who knows? There's Xenort, who is a random melee mob, and then there is Sleeby, who is the healer that will heal himself and his friends if allowed. And the main reason people want to kill Fosruk is he carries the magical rod which unlocks the keystone in the Circle of Inner Binding. But I always remember seeing this guy in Classic WoW, and he used to be elite, and then they made him not elite in Burning Crusade, and now he's down to like level 30. He's not elite. He doesn't even have his kobold friends anymore. They've really just kept nerfing him and taking everything away from him. His elite status, his HP, his kobold friends. So you know what? We're going to give something back to him. We're going to give him number 1 on the list of giants. So that's why Fosruk is number 1.
10.
Number 10 are the Thunderfist gorillas located in the Jade Forest. And, they're not going to be as interesting or exciting as some of the other gorillas we'll look at on this list, but they're still pretty cool, which is why I wanted to put them on the list. And I thought it'd be a good time to talk about a gorilla fact, which is gorillas' arms are longer than their legs. Because of the length of their arms, gorillas are better able to walk on all fours. They do everything with the tips of their fingers and knuckles. They're capable of walking on 2 legs for about 10 feet. Gorillas' arm span is roughly 1 foot longer than that of an adult human male. Though modern gorillas spend most of their time on the ground, their lengthy forearms hint at a past life in the trees. So there you go. That's some gorilla facts. I figured it'd be a good point to put it in there because it's like, gorilla arms, thunder fist, fist, arms, they're attached. Listen, I'm just trying to find something. That's why the Thunderfist gorillas are number 10.
9.
Number 9 is Zeus, and Zeus is a gorilla witch doctor located in Gorilla Gorge in Zuldazar. And not only is he a cool gorilla witch doctor, but he is likely a reference to Dr. Zeus from Planet of the Apes. And all I can ever think of when I hear of Dr. Zeus is the Simpsons thing where they're like, Dr. Zeus, Dr. Zeus, Dr. Zeus. But even if this wasn't a reference to Planet of the Apes, I think this is an awesome gorilla. I mean, he's literally a gorilla witch doctor. Like, how cool is that? And he's got abilities called Gorilla Science and Banana Launch Pattern Alpha, which are also fantastic. Also, he's a part of a quest called Unending Gorilla Warfare, where you have to kill him, as well as Dakani Pugilists, Dakani Highbrows, and King Daka, all of who did not make the list, so I'm sorry to all of them, but there's a little shout out for all them. But overall, I couldn't pass up Witch Doctor Gorilla, also a Planet of the Apes reference, and also kind of a Simpsons reference, because I love the Simpsons. So that's why Zeus is number 9.
8.
Number 8 is Mock the Savage, and Mock the Savage is a gorilla found in a cave in the Cape of Stranglethorn that will only appear after being summoned by Witch Doctor Unbagwa when you turn in Gorilla Fangs. So Finn Fizzracket is suffering from Stranglethorn fever, which is a deadly virus, and the only cure is to eat the heart of Mock Savage, which I don't know how he knows this, but he must just be knowledgeable about Stranglethorn diseases or something. So he's like, yo, you gotta go find Witch Doctor Unbagwa. So you go to Witch Doctor Unbagwa, and he's like, yo, bring me some gorilla fangs, and then we're gonna get attacked by gorillas. And then that's what happens. You get attacked by gorillas, you protect him, and then Mock the Savage shows up, and you kill him, and you take his heart, and you go back to him, and then he's feeling a-okay. This is one of those quests I always remember, because I always remember dying to the waves of gorillas, and then you get to Mock the Savage, and then just this weird, like, sickness, Stranglethorn fever thing. It's a really weird quest, but it's a memorable one, and so that's why it's number 8.
7.
Number 7 are the Elder Mistvale gorillas found in Mistvale Valley in the Cape of Stranglethorn. And there's 2 things I remember these gorillas for. Well, 3, because technically they do drop the gorilla fangs for the Mock the Savage quest we just talked about, so that's 1. Then the Mistvale giblets, which are for scaring Shaky. You essentially get a bunch of giblets, and he's supposed to pay his gambling debts, and you take it to him and go like, look, this is what happens when you don't pay your debts. And then he's supposed to think they're like human giblets, but it's actually gorilla giblet. What even is a giblet? It's the liver, heart, gizzard, and neck. I didn't even know. I thought it was just like the thing in their throat, because I remember turkeys on Thanksgiving. Well, there you go, okay? And then the aged gorilla sinew, which may be one of the worst drop rates in World of Warcraft history. I would either get this after like 2 kills or like 2 hours. I also have fond memories of these gorillas, because I remember way back in like 2005 when I started playing, I took the Zeppelin here and I ran out into Stranglethorn, and these were like one of the first mobs I saw, and I was like level 9 at the time, and I was like, dude, this is crazy. These are like question mark gorillas. So there's actually a lot of things that tie into these gorillas that make me like them a lot, and so that's why they're number 7.
6.
Number 6 is Amy 01, and Amy 01 is a mechanical gorilla that is designed by Karna Rem Travel. She pretty much says something's happened to one of my greatest inventions. You've seen mechanical squirrels. Well, to get closer to the apes of Ungoro, I created a mechanical ape to blend in with their kind called Amy 01. And this is actually a reference to the book and movie Congo, where there's a gorilla that knows sign language named Amy. So you head out, you go and find Amy, and you need to go find a mithril casing and then turn the power off and on, which is kind of funny. They did a little, turn it off and on again goof. And then after you repair Amy, you have to escort her back to the Ungoro camp, which was always really annoying back in the day, which is part of the reason I remember this quest, not only because you had to go get the mithril casing, but then you had to do the escort quest, and then, you know, there'd always be someone else doing the escort quest. It was just a whole thing. But anyway, once you're done with that, she's like, thank you very much. She's got a bunch of dents. We'll get her up and running perfectly with just a little work. Thanks again. So, you know, it's a fun quest, a little bit involved, but listen, this is a robotic gorilla. There's not many of these in the game, and so that's why Amy is number 6.
5.
Number 5 is King Mukla, and King Mukla is an enormous Skymane gorilla found on Jaguaro Isle in the Cape of Stranglethorn, and he has captured a Taran princess, Pooba. And people say he's either a reference to King Kong or Donkey Kong, but it seems more like Donkey Kong. However, Donkey Kong is a reference to King Kong, so it really just all comes back around anyway. He does have a move called Barrel Bash, where he hurls a massive barrel at the enemy, which explodes. So, you know, just like in the Donkey Kong video game, he's throwing barrels at you. But I think a lot of people remember King Mukla just because of Hearthstone. Like, I think he's more well known in Hearthstone than he is in World of Warcraft. In fact, in Hearthstone, there's an old god corrupted version of King Mukla, Mukla the Tyrant of the Veil. In fact, King Mukla's had a bunch of lore in Hearthstone, probably more than World of Warcraft, where he's just a reference, but that's Hearthstone, that's not WoW. But either way, King Mukla, giant gorilla, really cool. He's number 5.
4.
Number 4 is Sul Kalu, and Sul Kalu is an earth spirit that's a large white gorilla rare mob wandering west of Lake Nazfaridi. They are one of the 3 totemic spirits worshipped by the Bloodscalp tribe, whose members carry idols of the earth spirit in the form of small ape-shaped statues. The other 2 Bloodscalp spirits are Mahamba, who is a water crocodile spirit, and Pogayan, who is a mountain lion fire spirit. Sul Kalu is also a reference to Sul Kalu, which is a giant featured in the legends of the Cherokee people of the southeastern United States. And Sul Kalu is pretty cool because he's one of only 2 blue-white gorillas that are tameable by hunters, the other being Uklok, another rare mob. Sul Kalu is also one of the largest in-game gorillas, although considerably smaller than King Mukla. So there you go. Sul Kalu may not be the biggest gorilla, but he's the second biggest. He's a rare mob, he's an earth spirit, and he's pretty cool. And that's why he's number 4.
3.
Number 3 is Gargantua, the chained up gorilla at the Dark Moon Fair. And a lot of people think Gargantua is a reference to King Kong, especially with all the artwork all over. And you're like, oh, it's King Kong on those. But it's actually a reference to Gargantua the Great. And he was a 550-pound gorilla that drew more than 40 million circus goers for the Ringling Brothers Circus. So there you go, a little historical fact there. But you know, Gargantua is probably one of the big sights to see here at the Dark Moon Fair petting zoo, but I don't even know if I'd call it a petting zoo. There's not many things you could pet here at the Dark Moon Fair. More so just a zoo. In fact, I made a pointless top 10 Dark Moon Fair things you could check out at the cards above if you want to see that. But overall, Gargantua, really cool gorilla, and probably the main attraction of the actual Dark Moon Fair zoo area. So that's why Gargantua is number 3.
2.
Number 2 is Grong, and I think Grong actually might be the biggest gorilla in the game, but according to Wowpedia, Grong is an intelligent gorilla located in Zuldazar, the smartest of his kind. When war came to Zandalar, Bilgewater goblins attempted to poach the Dakani gorillas despite the gorillas' best efforts to speak with them peacefully. In response to this, Grong joined forces with the Alliance, volunteering to become a living weapon against the Horde by converting his intelligence into pure strength with gnomish technology. Grong, having been increased in size and power but decreased in his intelligence by gnomish engineering, fought the Horde in the Battle of Dazar Lore. After he was killed by the Horde, he was risen as an undead by Bwansamdi and turned against the Alliance, who in turn put him to rest. Which I actually did not know, because I've only done the Horde version of this. And looking it up, I was like, oh my god, that's an undead gorilla. So I guess I was going to put him on the list, but they're technically the same one. So I also learned that the Dakani are a tribe of intelligent gorillas in Gorilla Gorge and Zuldazar, and they became enlightened due to their exposure to Kajamite. So these gorillas are pretty much like X-Men. They're like X-gorillas. But aside from that, Grong is probably the biggest and smartest gorilla in the game. And on top of that, he's a raid boss. So that's why he's number 2.
1.
And number 1 is Glib. And Glib is a gorilla once found at the Bronzebeard encampment in Silithus, and Bran Bronzebeard mentions him in his lost letter. At the time of the destruction of Silithus, it seems that Glib was with Bran, as he later can be found with him aboard the Wind's Redemption docked at Borealis in Kul Tiras. He travels to Nazmir on Zandalar with Bran. And you might be like, Crendor, well, why is Glib number 1? Is that it? Just because it's Bran Bronzebeard's pet? Well, here's the thing. Though he is called a monkey, Glib uses a gorilla model. This is probably because monkey models did not exist in the game when he was added. Even after monkeys were added in Cataclysm, Glib did not receive a new model. And this discrepancy is referenced in Glib's gossip text in Battle for Azeroth, where it says, Glib looks at you curiously. Bran doesn't have the heart to tell him he's not a monkey. And I know what everybody's thinking, aren't gorillas and monkeys the same? But if you look it up, is a gorilla a monkey or ape? Almost all monkeys have tails. Apes don't have tails. Since gorillas don't have tails, they are classified as apes. But either way, it felt extremely fitting for a pointless top 10 to have the number 1 gorilla be a gorilla that thinks he's a monkey and not a gorilla. And that's why he's number 1.
10.
Number 10 are the Flesh-Sown Savages and the Razor Thread Haulers located in Maldraxxus. And these are these weird-looking little abomination-type guys. And from what I read, they are leftover abominations, so I guess they just didn't work out, and now they're made to do all of the dirty work, essentially. So you've got them, like, digging up or digging through bodies. I don't know what they're doing. And then you've got the other ones, like, hauling around thread, which, you know, razor thread, which is, I imagine, how they stitch together all the abominations. So I never even really knew about these guys. I barely quested in Maldraxxus, and I think if I did, I didn't even remember this, but I actually think they're really fun and goofy. I really like the ones holding the thread where they're like, bah, 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 bah. They're just hauling around these big spools of thread. And so one of the reasons I love Pointless Top 10 is I get to find all these things that people have forgotten about or didn't even know were in the game. And so I had to put these little weird abomination guys on the list because, I mean, who's going to Maldraxxus anyway? And so that's why the Razor Thread Haulers and Flesh-Sown Savages are number 10.
9.
Number 9 are the Undercity Guardians, and these guys don't have any names. There's no special Undercity Guardians, well, at least that I know of, but most of them are just walking around guarding the Undercity, and how could you not remember these guys, right? Whether you're going by the elevator and about to get crushed by it, or going down into the Undercity and you bypass them when they're standing right near the little hallways and stuff, or out in the courtyard. Like, these guys are all over, and dating all the way back to classic WoW, like, I remember seeing these Undercity Guardians, and it's one of the things I first noticed when I would go into the Undercity. And I learned from Wowhead that they actually have some funny little interactions, so if you ask them where the mage trainer is, they'll say,
"They's in the magic corner. Look for them in Scary Skull Building."
And if you ask for the paladin trainer,
"Us no like paladins. Elf lady come to city, stay in royal quarter. Her paladin. You talk, learn paladin things."
And if you ask for the alchemist, they say,
"Dr. Herbert Halsey in the apothecarium where us was born. Him could sew you back together like us."
And so, yeah, I love the Undercity Guardians. I think they're great, and that's why they're number 9.
8.
Number 8 is Rammstein the Gorger, and Rammstein is located in Stratholme, and according to the Dungeon Journal, Rammstein is one of the Scourge's most infamous abominations, a horror stitched together from numerous corpses and empowered by a ceaseless hunger. This monster committed unspeakable atrocities on countless innocent souls when Scourge forces overran Stratholme. He's also responsible for the death of Lord Nathanos Maris, who you might know better as Nathanos Blightcaller. And it seems pretty obvious to me that this is a reference to the band Rammstein. I mean, it might not be, but knowing Blizzard's taste in music, especially back then, it seems like it definitely is. But then I read here that it says it may also be a reference to the airshow disaster at the town of Rammstein, particularly considering the lightning bolts that drop off his loot table. But then after learning that, I learned that the band Rammstein is actually named after the airshow disaster at Rammstein. So really it all just like comes full circle. But either way, that's why Rammstein the Gorger is number 8.
7.
Number 7 is Bitsy, and Bitsy is an abomination innkeeper located at Hirawatha Research Station in the Hinterlands. And Bitsy is very small, especially compared to many of the other abominations. Bitsy is, well, you could say itsy bitsy, right? Because it's like the itsy bitsy spider, so it's like itsy bitsy, it's like tiny, right? That's the reference that they're doing here. And if you feel like you've already seen Bitsy before in a Pointless Top 10, that's because you have. Bitsy was in Pointless Top 10 food vendors, and actually Bitsy could have been in Pointless Top 10 innkeepers as well. Bitsy's doing everything. And in addition to allowing you to make this place your home, Bitsy sells tough jerky, haunches of meat, mutton chops, wild hog shanks, cured ham steaks, and roasted quail, although I don't know if I'd want to eat any of this meat. Doesn't look very sanitary, but hey, you know what? It's the thought that counts, right? But I had to put Bitsy on this list because Bitsy's just a really unique abomination. I don't think there's any abominations in the game that are as small as Bitsy outside of, you know, battle pets or something, which are just small because that's how they have to be. Like, Bitsy is just a genuinely small abomination, and that's pretty cool. So that's why Bitsy is number 7.
6.
Number 6 is the Rayget's Kalaba Monstrosity, and the Rayget's Kalaba Monstrosity is a flesh beast located in the sludge fields of the Hillsbird Foothills. And if you don't know what a flesh beast is, it is a mutated abomination, which are powerful abomination constructs of the Scourge. And according to Master Apothecary Lydon, it was pieced together out of 3 farmers, which you can actually see in classic World of Warcraft, which were Farmer Ray, Farmer Getz, and Farmer Kalaba. And you know, after playing classic WoW quite a bit, especially classic hardcore, and having to kill Farmer Ray, Getz, and Kalaba over and over, I'm actually not too upset that this is what happened to them. Because they were like pretty annoying to deal with, and they were surrounded by stuff. I don't know, like whatever. At least now they're just a big giant abomination thing, which, you know, that sucks for them, but what are you gonna do? But that's one of the reasons I decided to put it on the list, is I think this was a cool little side story that they did with, you know, turning Farmer Ray, Getz, and Kalaba into this weird mutated abomination. I just think it was pretty neat, so that's why it's number 6.
5.
Number 5 is Corpulus, and Corpulus is an abomination in Acaris the Ebonhold, and he serves as Acaris's mess hall chef and has written a book enumerating his rules for the mess hall called Corpulus's Mess Hall Rules. Now, I looked all over for this book. I looked upstairs, downstairs, on the tables, like all over, and I could not find it. And it was like, oh, it's right next to him. But he like walks around, and I genuinely couldn't find this book. But I did find it online, so I'm gonna read some excerpts to you, because why not? All right, we've got
Corpulus, great cook of Acaris, who make good food for you. He proud to feed mighty Scourge and make stronger. No make Corpulus mad, he no feed you. Rules. Death Knight eat first, Ghoul wait turn. No eat Ghoul next to you. Need clean plate first. Okay, eat with hands or swords. No eat hands or swords. Zombie need try more food. Think outside the brains. No eat self.
And there's some other ones in there, but I think you get the picture. I will say that they had the opportunity to give him some unique items to sell, but they didn't really do that. He just has some generic stuff, so that kind of sucked, but he's still pretty cool, so that's why Corpulus is number 5.
4.
Number 4 are Rotface, Festergut, Precious, and Stinky. I decided to just package them all together because, I mean, they are all in the same wing in Icecrown Citadel. And, I mean, listen, these are some of the most iconic abominations you're going to find. 2 dog creature abominations, and then Rotface and Festergut, who are the mutated abominations we talked about from earlier, but these are created by Professor Putricide. And I don't know about you, but I always felt bad killing Precious and Stinky. Like, it's their pets, right? And they're just walking around, and then you kill them, and they're just like, Precious, no! And then he's like, you killed Stinky, you pay. Like, I don't know, it feels bad. Like, they're sad. They're already these big mutated abominations, and now we're killing their pets on top of it. But like I said earlier, these are probably some of the most well-known abominations in the game, and so I had to put them on the list, and that's why Precious, Stinky, Rotface, and Festergut are all number 4.
3.
Number 3 is Margrave Garmal, and Margrave Garmal was the leader of the House of Constructs, which is one of the 5 Necrolord houses in Maldraxxus. And he is a massive abomination that possesses the power to shape flesh in ways that few other beings could. And this is another one of those things where, as much as I didn't really like Shadowlands, they got some pretty cool stuff, like the art, the design, like so much cool stuff is in Shadowlands, and this guy's no exception. He's got this massive tube in his gut. And you know what? He kind of looks like a cooler version of the Goblin King from The Hobbit. Like, if you look up Goblin King Hobbit right now, you can compare him and be like, dude, he kind of does look like a cooler Goblin King. He also has these 2 insane guards that have crazy weapon hands, and they're almost like roided out abominations in a way, right? If you go back and look at all the old abominations and then these, you're like, damn, these are some crazy abominations. It's like Uruk-hai compared to the orcs. We're going all out with the Lord of the Rings references. And so yeah, I think they're pretty cool. Again, you know, for Shadowlands being as bad as it was, there is some cool stuff in there, and this is one of those things. So that's why Margrave Garmal is number 3.
2.
Number 2 is Patchwork, and Patchwork is the first boss of the Construct Hoarder in Naxxramas, and out of all the fights in the game, I think when people think of Tank and Spank or a gear check fight, this is probably the fight that you think of. And Patchwork originally appeared as a boss in Classic Naxxramas, the one before Wrath of the Lich King, and is one of Kel'Thuzad's most powerful abominations. His strength and speed came as a shock to those that faced him in combat. And so, I mean, thematically, he does make sense as a tank and spank fight, right? Like, he's just this massive abomination. He's strong, he's gonna hit hard, but he's an abomination. He doesn't have much going on up there. Also, I didn't realize that there's an EverQuest reference in here. So when you aggro Patchwork, he says, "Kel'Thuzad make Patchwork his avatar of war." And it turns out the avatar of war refers to the EverQuest boss of the same name. And the boss had a similar ability to Hateful Strike, which is one of Patchwork's abilities, in that it would unleash massive damage to the tank, which would have to be healed through. And so yeah, how could I not put Patchwork high up on this list? And that's why Patchwork is number 2.
1.
And number 1 is Stitches. And Stitches is probably the most well-known abomination in the game. Because, I mean, even if you're a low-level player, you probably have a point where you were in Darkshire, walking around, and all of a sudden Stitches came running through and killed you, right? And I talked about this a bit in Pointless Top 10 Creepy NPCs, but Abercrombie, the Embalmer, creates Stitches as a gift for the mayor of Darkshire, sending him to terrorize the town. And you actually help Abercrombie create Stitches unknowingly. He's just like, "Go get me this, go get me that." And you're like, "Okay, it's a quest." And then the mayor's like, "Listen, I know you were helping him, but you shouldn't have done that." And then Stitches comes rolling in like, blah, 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 blah. And so that's pretty much it. Stitches is created as an act of vengeance to terrorize the town. But Stitches, again, really one of the most iconic abominations in the game. Most people have seen Stitches walking around and been like, "Oh, don't get near him," or they've been killed by Stitches, right? He is pretty much the OG Fell Reaver from Hellfire Peninsula. And so Stitches had to be on this list. And I was like, you know what? I think he's number 1. And so that's why Stitches is number 1. 10. Number 10 are all the mobs in the Fields of Honor, which are located around the front of the Black Rock Stronghold in the Burning Steppes. And I'm not gonna lie, I barely quested in the Burning Steppes to begin with, so I kind of just forgot the Burning Steppes had stuff in it to begin with. But I think one of my favorite things about this is it gives that Lord of the Rings vibe, like when Saruman's looking out at all the Uruk-hai and he's like, "Whoa!" and they're all like, "Ugh." Like, that's kind of what I got from this on a, you know, far lesser scale, obviously. But yeah, you've got the Blackrock Soldiers, you've got the Smolderthorn Assassins, and you have the Firegut Flame Speakers, and these are all part of the quest objective Chisel Grip, the Heart of the Steppes, where you have to go and kill 15 Blackrock troops on your way to Chisel Grip. And there's really nothing special about the mobs. It's just, I think they're lined up in cool battle formations, and that in itself is kind of memorable, but I doubt many people quested in the Burning Steppes, and I doubt many people really remember these, so that's why they're number 10. 9. Number 9 are the Slither Scale Rippers, and these are located on the Windward Isle in the Jade Forest. And I'm not gonna lie, I would have put these higher on the list if the Mist of Pandaria remix didn't just happen and a lot of people went back and requested and probably found these guys again, so they didn't really forget about them, but most people just did dungeons and raids and then did the experience mailbox thing anyway, so maybe you did still forget about them. And these guys are just really goofy looking Sarok that are running all over the place looking for eggs and cloud serpents to kill. So the cloud serpents actually come here and make nests and lay their eggs, and then the Sarok have invaded this place, and their whole purpose is just to steal the eggs. And I don't know if they're going to eat the eggs or if they just don't want the cloud serpents to reproduce or whatever's happening. They want to get rid of these eggs and the cloud serpents. And I also read some Wowhead comments about how these guys would just follow you forever, like how most mobs would follow you for a bit and then give up and go back to where they were. These mobs do not. They will just keep following you. And like I said before, I just think they're funny. Like, they're cooking up fish, they're hopping around, they're eating bones, they're like charging into each other. They're just weird, goofy lizard guys. And they're just doing all this on some random island out off the Jade Forest coast. And so that's why they're number 9. 8. Number 8 are the Hounds of Kuluthas and the Eyes of Kuluthas, located at the Ruins of Farallon in Netherstorm. And the Ruins of Farallon are pretty far north up in Netherstorm, and it was once a Draenei settlement comparable to Telmor or Karabor. And a dreadlord named Kuluthas broke away from the Burning Legion and killed all of Sakrathar's Burning Legion demons in the ruins, and then summoned his own demons, which were called Hounds of Kuluthas and Eyes of Kuluthas. And a fun fact, Farallon was actually the old name of Netherstorm. But I actually love the hounds and the eyes. You've got the hounds walking around with a bunch of eyes all over them, which is kind of funny. And then you have the actual eyes that look like they're headbanging to a metal song or something. They're just like, oh, yeah, like they're in the mosh pit. And then you got Kuluthos up there being like, with the crystal, I am a god, which is apparently the Atamal crystal, a powerful Draenei artifact, which he retrieved off the Dead Burning Legion after they excavated it. So yeah, there's actually a lot of little cool lore tidbits up here, and I think the mobs are really goofy and fun, and I think a lot of people forgot about them, so that's why they're number 8. 7. Number 7 are the Iron Horde Scouts, and these are orcs located at the Moonlit Shore in Shadowmoon Valley. And I'm sure, like many things in Draenor, these guys have been forgotten about, specifically because there's really not that many of them. And these guys were part of an objective for a mission called Spy Games, which stemmed from Inscription. So that's even more reason why people would either never do this or just completely forgot about them. And you can find them just walking around the shore in this specific area in Shadowmoon Valley. And they actually do look really cool. They got a bunch of cluster bombs in their back, and they got some cool looking weapons and gear, and I actually think they look awesome, but there's really not that many of them. I'm sure there's other mobs that have similar art style that are just called different things, but I think they look cool. And these were actually one of the mobs that inspired me to do this Pointless Top 10, because I was just exploring around here and I was like, dude, I don't even remember these guys being a thing. Like, I forgot they existed. And I was like, dude, how many mobs like there are? There's probably a lot. And so that's why the Iron Horde Scouts are number 7. 6. Number 6 are the Sawblade Clearcutters, and these are gnome bots located on Mechagon Island. And this is part of a quest called Aid from Nordrassil, where you help kill the Sawblade Clearcutters to save the animals and the nature of the Mechagon Island from being overrun by all of the gnome bots. And the mecha gnomes, I guess. They're the ones making the gnome bots and doing all this. And I wanted to put these on the list because I remember always coming to Mechagon and seeing these guys and doing the quests, and they were just always chopping trees down and walking around being like beep, beep, boop, bop, beep, and chasing people around and stuff. And they actually do look pretty cool. They got their big spinning saw blade arms, and their heads are spinning around sometimes. They actually remind me of a modernized, kind of roided up Harvest Reaper from back in Westfall. So unless you're coming to Mechagon all the time for mount farming or pet collection or something, I feel like a lot of people forgot about these guys, and that's why they're number 6. 5. Number 5 are all the mobs located at the Mildenhall Meadery in Stormsong Valley. And you have the Flowing Honey Slimes, the Honey Crazed Maulers, and the Bubbling Mead Elementals. And this place is, I think, one of the coolest places in Stormsong Valley. It's actually one of my favorite places in Battle for Azeroth. And that's saying something, because I actually love a lot of the Battle for Azeroth zone design and art styles. And I love how the elementals are just sucking up these big puddles of honey, and then you have the Honey Crazed Maulers that are actually eating the slimes, which is, I think, making them crazy, or they got a sugar high. I don't know what's happening, but they're honey crazed. In fact, it kind of gave me flashbacks to the honeycomb cereal mascot, if you remember that guy, and he would like go crazy for honeycombs. That's what these guys remind me of. And the only reason I didn't put this higher on the list is I'm sure there are people that go back here because of the bee quest, and I think you do have to go into this area for the bee quest. I never got the bee, so I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it starts around this area. But for people that don't care about the bee mount or already did it, you probably did forget about these guys, and that's why they're number 5. 4. Number 4 are the Apexis Guardians located in the Spires of Iraq. And first off, I love that they're kind of just skipping around like they're having a really fun time, like la 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 la. It's like, that's what they're doing. A bunch of them are just skipping around. I think it's really funny. And these guys are powered by solar energy, and they are based on excavated Apexis constructs. The Apexis Arakoa had always been arrogant, and they had been even more so after their victory against the Primals. They deemed those who walked the surface to be unclean and used their constructs to mine and gather other resources from the ground. 1,200 years later, the golems were reactivated from within the Apexis excavation near Skyreach. The ancient Nest Guardians were originally built as automated caretakers for young Arakoa, but with the conflict escalating between the adherents of Rukmar and the outcasts, many have been repurposed as instruments of war. So there you go. There's your Warcraft wiki Apexis Guardian lore of the day. And I just wanted to put them on the list because I figured people forgot about them for the sole reason they're in the Spires of Iraq and Draenor, and I highly doubt many people are going back to there, so that's why the Apexis Guardians are number 4. 3. Number 3 are the Kavaldir, or the Valdir, I don't know if the K is silent, located at Hrothgar's Landing. And Hrothgar's Landing is a small island located off the northern coast of Icecrown. I think it is so cool that it's really just its own sub-region located north of Northrend, And, you know, it's still pretty much attached to Northrend, but when you look at the Northrend map, it looks like it's just a piece of the Ice Crown zone. But then when you hover over it and actually click on it, it is its own subregion, which I just think is really cool. And none of that actually relates to the actual mobs, which are the Kobolds, and they have taken over the island from the Tuskar. So this used to be a Tuskar village, and then during the Wrath of the Lich King, the Kobolds come in and they wipe out all the Tuskar, which is actually pretty brutal and sad. Like, you look around, you see everything destroyed here, and it sucks, because I like Tuskar, so I don't like that. And, you know, there's plenty of Kobolds in the game all over the place, but these specific ones over on Hrothgar's Landing are the ones that I'm mentioning because I think a lot of people just forget Hrothgar's Landing is even a thing. In fact, it says, following the war against the jailer, the brothers Bronzebeard reported that the island is still under the control of the Kobolds. And nobody really knew about that because nobody played Shadowlands that far. And that's why the Kobolds on Hrothgar's Landing are number 3. Number 2 are all the mobs at the Unbound Thicket in the Crystal Song Forest, specifically the eastern half of the Crystal Song Forest. And you have numerous Unbound here. You have Unbound Satyrs, you have Unbound Ancients, Dryads, Ents, as well as Highborn Spirits wandering about. And there's actually a lot of cool lore behind the Crystal Song Forest. I remember talking about it and learning about it in Pointless Top 10 Ruins, where I covered the ruins of Shandaral. And to briefly sum it all up, the elves got greedy, they stole some magic, they tried to do some stuff, it backfired, it exploded, it messed up the whole zone, and these mobs are kind of like a byproduct of all that. I talk about it more in depth in Pointless Top 10 Ruins, so if you want to go listen to a more in-depth description, you can go listen to that. But one of the reasons I wanted to put these specific mobs on the list is I always remember flying over Crystal Song Forest, not even questing there, just like flying over it or running through, and always seeing these mobs and being like, those are pretty cool. And I was like, I'm sure plenty of other people had similar situations where they just remember these guys from traveling over, traveling through Crystal Song Forest and being like, oh yeah, those mobs are pretty cool. And so that's why they're number 2. And number 1 are the Dark Lost Crowcool. The Dark Lost Crowcool are located at the Orinar Collapse in Eridath. And the Dark Lost Crowcool are actually just broken. And that doesn't mean like, oh, they're broken. They are literal broken, which are a devolved subrace of Draenei who live in Outland. And they were mutated after being exposed to the fell energies wielded by Orc Warlocks. And these specific ones are Void Scarred, so they have been corrupted by the void. So when you really think about it, that's gotta suck, right? Like, you've been mutated by the fell energies, and then on top of that, now you've been corrupted by the void. It's just like, oh god, what's next? You walk outside the next day, it's like, what's happening now? Who's gonna corrupt us or mutate us or whatever? And the only way I figured out that these guys still existed was whenever I would use my engineering portal to Argus, it would warp me sometimes right in front of these guys. And I was like, who are these guys? Like, I've seen them numerous times. Like, I don't know who they are. And so I was like, well, they're perfect for this list. So that's why the Dark Lost Crowcool are number 1. Number 10 are the Murghouls, and the Murghouls are undead Murlocs that are located at the Chilmere coast in the Howling Fjord. And the reason these Murlocs are undead is they are being transformed by the Scourged Necrolords into zombie Murlocs, essentially. And as you can see right there, there are these big purple crystals that are shooting out these large, like, slinky-looking beams, and then one big beam of light, and they hit the Murlocs, and I guess it makes them into undead Murlocs. I don't know the science behind it or the magic, but it's pretty cool, to be honest. And so this is the only location in the game where Murghouls actually exist, and there's Murghoul Corruptors, Murghoul Flesh Eaters, and Unstable Murghouls. And there's also Rotgill. And Rotgill's father, Old Icefin, is nearby, and he offers a quest where you have to go and get his son's trident. And so for being such a small random area in Northrend, it actually has a lot of cool stuff behind it. And that's why the Murghouls are number 10. Number 9 are these Murlocs located in the northeastern part of High Mountain that just collect a bunch of treasure and junk, and they just hoard stuff. And I could have sworn that these guys were called Junk Hoarder Murlocs at some point, but I think I just put that into my brain because I looked all over and I couldn't find anything called Junk Hoarder Murlocs. And I was like, dude, I know I saw it, but either way, these are actually Junk Hoarder Murlocs. They get a bunch of stuff and they bring it up to their pile of junk, and I love it. I think it's so fun and goofy. And I can't remember anywhere else in the game where I've seen a bunch of Murlocs just hoarding stuff. Like, they've got swords, they've got shields, they've got pottery, they've got skulls, which I don't know why they're getting those. They've got crystals, they got a whole bunch of stuff in there. And that's just their big pile of treasure up on the mountain. I think all their little huts and shack things also have a lot of knickknacks and little treasures as well. And so they might not be the most well-known Murlocs or the craziest Murlocs or the strongest Murlocs, but you know what? They're good at what they do. hoarding junk, and that's why they're number 9. Number 8 are all the classic WoW Murlocs, as well as Old Murkai. And I was going to do just the Westfall Murlocs and Old Murkai, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to group all the old classic Murlocs together, because they're kind of all the same for the most part. And, you know, there's some in Elwyn Forest and Darkshore, and they're kind of all over the place. But I wanted to put the Westfall ones on here, because I think that's the place I remember them the most, to be honest. And Murlocs have to be one of the most notorious mobs in World of Warcraft. Like, out of all the things that try to attack you in this game, I think a lot of people, they see Murlocs, they hear them, and somebody might have not played WoW for 15 years, and if they hear that, they're gonna be like, dude, that's a Murloc, right? And then there's Old Murkai, who is the Murloc leader that patrols the shore of Westfall near the old Westfall Lighthouse. And I kind of talk about this in Pointless Top 10 Lighthouses, but I'll give a brief summary here. So Old Murkai actually led attacks against this lighthouse. He just didn't like it for some reason, and then the family fled, and then they came back and they relit the flame in the lighthouse, and Old Murkai was like, nah, we ain't doing this, and he coerced the weaker-minded Murlocs to raid the lighthouse again, and this time he killed the family. So it's actually pretty messed up. I think a lot of people see Old Murkai and they're like, it's that crazy name Murloc running up and down the coast, but he like led attacks against the families of the lighthouse nearby. Like, that's pretty insane. And so that's why the classic WoW Murlocs, including Old Murkai, are number 8. Number 7 is Cookie, and I guess he's Captain Cookie now, but Cookie used to be an elite Murloc in the Dead Mines in the service of Captain Greenskin and Edwin Van Cleef. And then, after the Cataclysm, according to the Adventure Guide, Cookie proclaimed himself captain of the Defias Brotherhood's Juggernaut following its previous commander's death. Although he still performs his official duties as Chief Cook, anyone who questions the validity of his captain title has been known to come down with a severe case of food poisoning. But yeah, people have known about Cookie for as long as this game has been around, right? Like, way back to even vanilla WoW, people were doing Dead Mines, they were fighting Cookie. Like, Cookie is old, dude. But like, he's worked his way up the ranks to Captain Cookie. Although I think in Shadowlands, they actually find him dead. But it's also Shadowlands, so I don't really pay attention to any of the lore that happens there. So how could I not put a Murloc pirate chef that has been around since pretty much the entirety of World of Warcraft onto this list? So that's why Cookie is number 7. Number 6 is Squirky, and Squirky is Grimnir Stonebrand's pet Murloc standing next to him in the Forlorn Cavern in Ironforge. And Grimnir is teaching Squirky how to fish and has been feeding him blind minnows from the pool in the cavern. Also, I thought it was pretty funny that in Legion, he was actually renamed from Squirky, Squirky, to Squrky because there was a Murloc with the same name that are located in Azuna named Squirkies, and they are young squiggle fin Murlocs that can be captured in pet battles. So there's 2 Squirkies, and there's actually an official Squirky plush available from the Blizzard Gear Store, but it's for the other Squirky, not this Squirky. Why can't we have a plush of the fishing pole Squirky, Blizzard? Come on. But yeah, I love this Squirky. He's got his little fishing pole. You feed him fish, he gets happy. Like, come on, we at least need a battle pet of Squirky, right? Like, maybe if you do some sort of fishing thing, or if you feed him enough fish, he becomes your pet. Like, Blizzard, please. If you're not gonna give us a Squirky fishing plush, at least give us a Squirky fishing pet. That's all I want. And that's why Squirky is number 6. Number 5 is Sir Finley Murgleton, and Sir Finley is a sophisticated Murloc adventurer who is a member of the Explorers League. And Sir Finley can be found all over. You find him in Stormheim getting involved with the bloodthirsty pirates led by the Vrykul. You find him in the watchtowers of the Sandy Beach and the Shimmering Expanse in Vazgir, which I actually talked about the other week on Pointless Top 10 Beaches. And it's here where he trades seashells for gold, which in turn can be traded with the wildlife in order to gather items that can again be traded for Finley's red crystal monocle. And he can also be found in Rustbolt on Mechagon Island. And I think there's a couple other places like Uldum and Thaldraszus. Sir Finley's all over. He's even in Hearthstone. In fact, Sir Finley was actually originally created for Hearthstone and was not part of World of Warcraft until Legion. And so yeah, I love Sir Finley. I mean, if you look at this guy, you'd be like, it's just some weird looking Murloc with a hat and a backpack. But he's actually one of the most intelligent beings in World of Warcraft. And that's why Sir Finley Murgleton is number 5. Number 4 are Gorloks, and Gorloks are an Arctic race of Murloc-like creatures, and most Gorloks are members of tribes that battle the Tuskar and Wolvar in the Borean Tundra and Sholazar Basin. And so these aren't technically Murlocs, but they're a Murloc-like creature, and I was like, you know what, just put them on the list, because I love Gorloks. I think Gorloks are one of my favorite thing in World of Warcraft. I remember back in Wrath of the Lich King, I loved Gorloks. I remember I actually made some weird David Lynch-style WoW Machinima about Gorloks. And I don't know, there's just something about Gorloks that I like a lot. I think they're really goofy too. When you do the quest, they're just like, me go this way. Yes, yes, yes. And you like follow them around and they're really happy. I think I love how happy they are. And according to the Wowpedia, Gorloks were jokingly called Murlocs on crack in the World of Warcraft magazine, which I could see it. And there's also speculation that if Bran is correct about a frog wild god creating the Gorloks, it may have actually been Kragwa, which is the frog Loa located in Nazmir. And he's also in Pointless Top 10 Frogs. Sorry, I'm promoting a lot of Pointless Top 10s this episode, but there's a lot of crossovers, all right? And that's why Gorloks are number 4. Number 3 are the Necrofin Murlocs, and the Necrofin are a tribe of deep-sea Murloc necromancers that dwell in Darkwater Cavern in Nosdrathar. And the lore behind these Murlocs is actually pretty cool. So legend has it that they discovered necromancy on a series of rune tablets at the bottom of the sea. So I just love the idea that these Murlocs were just walking around. They're like, hey, what are these tablets? And they're like, whoa, necromancy, awesome. And they just start raising the dead. They're like, whoa, this is so cool. And now they just have a bunch of like random skeletons standing near them that they command around. It's like they're playing Diablo or something. And the Necrofin Murlocs are actually in a war with the Naga nearby, and so they just keep going back and forth as they battle each other. But aside from all that, they really are just normal Murlocs, but that's why I put them so high up on the list, because this is the type of lore that I love in World of Warcraft and just games in general, is when there's like, oh, these are just some random Murlocs, and they stumble across these like necromancy tablets, and all of a sudden you have Murloc necromancers because they trained in it. Like, it's such a funny, goofy thing to have happen just out in the world, and so that's why the Necrofin Murlocs are number 3.
Blah.
Number 2 is King Murgle, and King Murgle is not actually a Murloc, but he also is. He's dressed up as a Murloc. He's a Night Elven agent of the DEHTA, and he's always wearing this Murloc costume because he loves studying the Murlocs. And Murgle first appears at the Winterfin Retreat in Wrath of the Lich King in Borean Tundra, and he goes there to observe some Winterfin Murlocs in their natural habitat, but then he sees that Claximus, this magical Makrura, is taking control of the tribe, and so the unaffected survivors that don't get mind controlled run over to Murgle and they name him their king, and then he tries to help them by getting you to do quests to save them. And he appears a few other times in the game. He appears in Cataclysm, he appears in Legion with Murky, shout out to Murky, by the way, honorable mention. And then he appears in Battle for Azeroth in Nosdrathar, and he has Murgle's Bar and Grill, which I think is my favorite scenario for King Murgle. And most of his interactions with the player involve trying to restock the bar in order to keep the Murlocs entertained and well fed, something he acknowledges is difficult due to their ferocity shown by this particular branch of species. He even asked the player to hunt for crabs, admitting that doing so is contradictory to the overall goal of DEHTA, claiming it is necessary to prevent the patrons from preying on humans. And I also think it's funny, there's just a bunch of drunk Murlocs here being like, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, that's why King Murgle is number 2. Before we get to number 1, I want to give an honorable mention to the Murloc backpack that is a transmog item, and it is phenomenal. It's just a little Murloc backpack guy. He eats fish. When you go into combat, he goes into his little eggshell. I love it, and I wanted to put him on the list, so that's an honorable backpack Murloc mention. And actual number 1 is Gurvorgul the Conqueror, and Gurvorgul the Conqueror is a Murloc located in Morheim in Stormheim, and he is here with his Bilgefin invaders. And there's a quest here called Reclaiming Morheim, where you have to go fight these Murlocs, and obviously this is a reference to Mike Morheim. But I'm not gonna lie, the reason I put these at number 1 is for the sole reason of they just look cool and funny. Like, these are Viking warrior Murlocs. They've just stolen a bunch of gear. They're just standing around and they're just like, blah, 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 and they're just ready to fight. It looks like they've made targets out of shells so they can practice throwing axes at them. And then all of them are just walking around with swords and shields, and some have helmets, and it's just funny. I just think it's really cool, and I like it a lot. So that's why Gurgle the Conqueror and his crew are number 1.
10.
Number 10 is the Captured Razormane, and the Captured Razormane is a Quilboar that you capture for the quest Drag It Out of Them, given by Togric of the Groldom farm. And so you take the net that she gives you, and you do capture a Quilboar, and you drag it back as like all these rocks are popping up behind the Quilboars. You like drag them along. And so after you do that, she's like, yo, you need to go interrogate this Quilboar and figure out why they're attacking our farms. And so now the Captured Razormane is chained up on the farm. You can talk to them, and you can say who sent you. You can punch them in the mouth, kick them in their big fat face, offer food, or tickle them. So obviously, you know, you tickle them and then they are like,
Hee hee ho, Battlemaster Tortusk never prepared us for this. Oh, I've said too much.
and so you learn that Tortusk is their leader, and I'm sure the Tortusk will be on this list later, right? But that's the main quest, and I decided to put them at number 10 because I was like, this Quilboar isn't that great, right? Like, they just get captured and interrogated, but it's still like a funny little quest. And apparently they actually used to be one of the old Quilboar models, but then they updated them to a new female Quilboar model. But all of the quest text still references a male Quilboar. So I think they just updated it and never changed it. And they're like, whatever. So that's a thing. And that's why the captured Razormane is number 10.
9.
Number 9 is Captain Flattusk, and Captain Flattusk is a rare Razormane Quilboar captain at the Razormane grounds in Durotar. And what makes Captain Flattusk so interesting is they were supposed to be the Hogger for Horde players. So they have exactly 666 health, just like Hogger, and they were one of the very few old world elite mobs who kept their elite status after patch 2.3. However, they lost it in patch 4.0. And because Captain Flattusk would always blend in with all the other normal Quilboars, a lot of newbie players would just randomly tag Captain Flattusk and be like, uh-oh, it's doing way more damage than the other ones, and then just die. And so I think a lot of people that only play Alliance probably don't even know Captain Flattusk. I mean, actually, you know what? I think there's Horde people that probably don't even know Captain Flattusk, because like I said, this is supposed to be the Horde Hogger, but obviously they're nowhere near as popular. But you know what? They deserve some credibility and they deserve some recognition, and that's why Captain Flattusk is number 9.
8.
Number 8 are the Quilboar of the Exile's Reach, and what makes them so weird is they are practicing necromancy. And so if you read the quest, the Forbidden Quilboar Necromancy, it says they rarely practice any magic other than geomancy, but these Quilboars seem to be dabbling in necromancy. They must be stopped. And so I'm actually more interested here in why there's like thorns all over the place, or how the Quilboars actually got to the Exile's Reach, because when I looked into the lore, it appeared that the boar god, Agamagon, when he died fighting the Burning Legion, his blood splattered all over, particularly in the Southern Barrens, which is where the Razorfen areas rise up from the ground. And so all of the Quilboars gathered in these areas because these vines essentially sprouted from the blood of their sacred gods, so they consider it sacred ground. But how did the blood get over here? Unless they've somehow learned, maybe through necromancy, how to grow these vines, or I have no idea. But I will say, if they add necromancers to World of Warcraft, they should also add Quilboars and allow us to be Quilboar necromancers. It only makes sense, and they should let us do it. So that's why the Exile's Reach necromantic Quilboars are number 8.
7.
Number 7 are the Bristleback Quilboars located in Mulgore. And if you play a Tauren, you know all about Quilboar, because the first thing you fight as a Tauren is the Quilboar. Well, not counting like plain striders and just wild animals. And obviously we just talked about how the Razormane have their boar god's blood splattered all over this area. So obviously there's thorns here right next to Mulgore, so they consider this their kind of sacred ground. And then they see the Tauren as kind of encroaching a little too close to it, and they're just like, hey, this is our ground. And the Tauren are just like, get out of here. But after the Cataclysm, the Quilboar have encroached on the village, and the Cataclysm drove them from their dens to spread like locusts across the land. And now you can see that they have truly started to attack the Tauren. But I felt like I had to put the Mulgore Quilboar on this list because I just always remember making a Tauren and fighting the Quilboar. And I was like, you know what? I bet a lot of people, when they think of Quilboars, they think of the Mulgore Quilboars because it's just the mob you fight right away. And so that's why I decided to put them at number 7.
6.
Number 6 is Three Tooth, and Three Tooth is a bristleback Quilboar matriarch that is doing some shamanistic stuff to grow these big vines. And obviously we just talked about how the blood of Agamagon splattered and all these vines and thorns grew from that, so it would make sense that the Quilboar would want to grow and spread more vines as a way to kind of like honor their god by spreading his symbolic body across the land, right? And so Three Tooth here, who actually does not have 3 teeth, which is disappointing, is just like, Ikrala Grike, by blood and thorn, new life from clay, dead earth reborn. And so it does seem like she's pretty much responsible for all the crazy vine growth happening here in the middle of the Barrens, and there is a quest where you take a staff and essentially use her own vines against her and kill her, but I actually think it's pretty cool. I wish the Quilboars would have created more vines here, but that's all right. So that's why Three Tooth is number 6.
5.
Number 5 are the Briarback Quilboar located in Stormsong Valley. And similar to the Exile's Reach Quilboar, it doesn't really make sense why they would be here, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think Agamagon's blood splattered this far out, right? In fact, there's actually a Warcraft lore post questioning this very thing, saying that Thornweavers in RFK use druidic magic to grow crawls where they shouldn't be, but it's been shown that they can't control this type of wild, and Agamagon himself doesn't support this behavior, and that the Quilboar doing it in Razorfen are driven mad by bat guano and controlled by Chargla. Someone does make a good point, though, and says maybe this is a different island tribe of Quilboars that after years of separation believe that Agamagon's on their side, and so they're using druidic magic for him, and they learn it from the Drust Thorn Speakers, which are the druids of Drustvar. And then there's the most likely scenario, which is Blizzard was like, yo, Quilboars would be pretty cool here, and then they're like, what's the lore behind them? And they're like, I don't know, we'll figure it out later, and then they just never did. But they do fit pretty well here in Stormsong Valley, and so that's why they're number 5.
4.
Number 4 are all the Quilboar and Quilboar bosses of Razorfen Crawl, specifically Chargla Razorflank and Warlord Ramtusk, who's also with Death Speaker Jargba and Agam Thorncurse. And so, like we mentioned earlier, the Quilboar consider this place sacred because this is Agamagon's resting place. And so, according to the lore, the Great Mass of RFK was conquered by the old crone Chargla Razorflank, and under her rule, the shamanistic Quilboar stage attacks on rival tribes as well as horde villages. And so Chargla has actually been negotiating with the Scourge, and according to the WoW Wiki, Chargla manipulated her followers into attacking denizens of the Barrens, lying to her Quilboar that they needed blood to revive Agamagon. She also shaped most of the Thorn Dome of the Razorfen Downs. And so the end quest of RFK is actually the spirit of Agamagon himself being like,
The Quilboar are my children. My blood runs deep in these lands. Chargla has steered them into darkness. Slay her and take her heart.
And so you do that, and then they're like,
Farewell, Chargla. May the Earth Mother watch over you.
and so it's actually pretty cool lore when you're not just running the dungeon mindlessly, so that's why the RFK Quilboar are number 4.
3.
Number 3 is the Razorfen Downs and the Undead Quilboar. So you can actually see here there are some cool looking Undead Quilboar. And I say they look cool, but they actually do look pretty messed up. And so Razorfen Downs is home to the Death's Head tribe, which is a group of undead Quilboars found in RFD and Kalimdor, and they're controlled by the Scourge and led by Lich Amnanar the Coldbringer, and they were the first major Scourge outpost on Kalimdor. In fact, Death Speaker Blackthorn, who you fight at the end of the dungeon, rose quickly through the ranks of the Death's Head cult after the defeat of Amnanar the Coldbringer, and shortly after usurping control of the cult, Blackthorn began receiving dark whispers. These whispers promised power and riches beyond belief if he could return Amnanar to life. Compelled by unnatural energies, Blackthorn discovered the location of Amnar's phylactery and has returned to Razorfen Downs to complete the ritual that will return his former master to life once more. And you know, thinking back on it, maybe that's where the Exile's Reach Quilboars come from. Maybe it's some sort of Scourge thing, but maybe not. I have no idea, but that's why the Razorfen Down Quilboars are number 3.
2.
Number 2 is Tortusk. You knew we'd get to him. You knew he was on this list. I mentioned it. So Tortusk is the leader of the Razormane tribe that resides around Thornhill, and he travels and fights mounted on his raptor Fez. And I'm not gonna lie, the reason he is so high up on this list is because he is riding a raptor. I would love if there were more Quilboars riding raptors, but he's the only one I've seen riding a raptor, which leads me to think, why aren't there more Quilboars riding raptors? Maybe it's just hard to tame a raptor. I have no idea, but it's pretty cool. And so it says here on the WoW Wiki that after the Cataclysm, many members of the Razormane tribe were lost without a leader and guidance, so they moved north closer to horde towns and homesteads in hope of etching out a survival by stealing food and attacking small caravans. Tortusk showed strength among the chaos of the Cataclysm, and he rode a raptor. Razormanes were drawn to this strength and the raptor, and pledged to serve under his banner. He directed them to Thornhill, which he believed would provide the Razormanes with the best opportunities to attack nearby horde encampments and easily raid caravans traveling to the crossroads. And so overall, Tortusk seems like a pretty good leader, and he rides a raptor, and that's why he's number 2.
1.
And number 1 is Mangletooth. And Mangletooth in Classic WoW is a Quilboar that's located in a cage in Camp Taraho, and after the Cataclysm became the new leader of the Razormane tribe. And so there's a few reasons that I have him as number 1, and one of which is I always remember him being in the cage giving you all these buffs, which you turn in blood shards to obtain these buffs, and blood shards are said to have been formed by the blood falling from Agamaggon, the boar god. And so Mangletooth is actually extremely manipulative, and at first he tries to convince players to attack the enemies of his tribe, the Bristlebacks, in hope that it would convince his own tribesmen to save him. However, he then realized that the people of his clan that he thought were cool weren't cool, and he was like, you know what, go kill them. And so he has you go and kill them, and then after Cataclysm, when he escapes, he is now the leader of the clan. So he must have just went back to him and he's like, yo guys, I'm back, those other guys were losers, I'm in charge now. And they were like, all right. In fact, Mancrick wants Mangletooth dead. He says, I no longer care for honor or glory. All that matters to me is Quilboar die by any means. Mangletooth, the chief of these filthy Razormanes, sits in his lair to the northwest atop a hill. End his life. And so yeah, Mangletooth is wanted by Mancrick. He buffed us with blood shards. He plotted revenge against his own clan. And he's pretty crazy. So that's why I decided to put him at number 1. 10. Number 10 are the Enchanted Tiki Warriors, and the Enchanted Tiki Warriors are mobs found at Zolmaz Stronghold in Zoldrak. And these are quite literally floating tiki masks that carry a big spear. Well, I don't know if they're carrying it. They're kind of... Actually, I don't know how they use it. I guess their magic allows them to use the spear and be a mask. I have no idea how it works. We don't really need to know how it works. We just know that it does work. And it says here that Tiki Warriors actually use the Night Elf male animation. So for a second, I was like, hey, maybe that means they're actually invisible night elves behind these masks, you know what I mean? But after looking into it, it appears that the, quote, invisible man model used for all possessed or floating weapons all use the male night elf animations. For example, the unholy weapons in Naxxramas and the prince's axes. But the comment that says this is from 2009, so it's possible maybe after Wrath of the Lich King they stopped doing that, but who knows, maybe they're still using the night elf animations to this very day. And I'm sure we could figure it out right now, but I don't got time. I got pointless top 10 lists to make, and so that's why the Enchanted Tiki Warriors are number 10. 9. Number 9 are the Enthralled Mutants, and the Enthralled Mutants are orcs that are infested and located in Gorgrond. They also appear during the invasions of the Frostwall and Lunarfall garrisons. And it appears that these weird plant people are the ones doing this. It looks like they're kind of resurrecting stuff, so I would imagine that's what's happening, but listen, this was Draenor. All I remember from Draenor is sitting in my garrison, all right? But the thing is, even though these orcs are pretty unusual, I actually think they're really cool. It looks like they have half green, half kind of pale parts of their body. They've got little growths and corrupted, I don't know what that is, feathers or roots or wings on them. And they've got green leaves and stuff growing on their beard. And then their hands look like they've dipped it in red paint or something, or it's just corrupted and it's like it's moving up their arm and taking them over. Like, it actually looks really sick. And so with all that being said, these are pretty unusual mobs. You don't normally see weird mutated plant orcs walking around every day. And really, we've only seen it in Draenor. And so that's why the Enthralled Mutants are number 9. 8. Number 8 are the Wolfhawks, and the Wolfhawks are large carnivorous flying mammals which, as you might have guessed from the name, resemble a wolf and a hawk joined together. So they have the body of a wolf, but they have a bunch of feathers all over, and they have the ability to fly. But the weird thing that also makes them unusual is there's not many of them in the game. The ones that I'm showing you right now are the 3 named Wolfhawks. There's Kveldufnir, Mavarnir, and Varaudnir. There's no way I said all that correctly. And they live in the caves on the southern coast of the Eye of Azshara. And outside of those, the only other Wolfhawks in the game are either mounts that hunters can get, or a Wolfhawk that appears during the quest for the hunters to get said Wolfhawk mounts. And so yeah, to me it's just unusual that we get all this Wolfhawk stuff in Legion, and they're like, dude, the Wolfhawks, this is what hunters are all about. You gotta ride your Wolfhawk mount. There's some crazy Wolfhawks out there that are named, and then we just never see any again, like ever. Like, where'd they go? Are they extinct? What happened? So that's why the Wolfhawks are number 8. 7. Number 7 is Guzrug the Tiny, and Guzrug is an ogre that's located in the Ring of Trials in Nagrand, the Draenor version. And Guzrug is called Guzrug the Tiny because he is quite literally half the size of a normal ogre. If you talk to him, he says, "You want fight in the arena? Talk with Dexel, he puts the fights together. Me, I'm just here to start the match and clean up the bodies after." And so yeah, I put him on the list because it is unusual to see an ogre that is very small in the game. I don't think there's many other ogres in the game that are his size, but In fact, funnily enough, he is the exact same size as a male night elf, which makes this our second male night elf fact of the day. I think if we get 3, we get a hat trick. So I don't know if he's actually an NPC more than he is a mob, but I guess all NPCs are technically mobs, but not all mobs are NPCs, right? It's kind of like Turtle Tortoise. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's my pointless list and I can do what I want. And so that's why Guzrug the Tiny is number 7. 6. Number 6 are the botany or the botany. I'm actually not sure. Whatever it is, it's based off of botany because it's the plant people we talked about earlier, right? You probably saw them and were like, man, they could have been on this list. Well, guess what? They are. And so the botany are a race of intelligent bark-skinned humanoids that are native to Draenor. And it says here that they are notorious for their ability to infest humanoid races and turn them into shambling slaves. So that's why we had the orcs from earlier. It all makes sense now. And I wanted to put them on the list because they give me this uncanny valley vibe. I don't know if you get it as well, but when I look at them, it just feels odd. Like they don't feel like they fit in World of Warcraft. And I don't know if that's just a me thing. Like when I think of plants and corruption and stuff, I think of Quilboars, right? Like to me, Quilboars should be here doing all this. But at the same time, I don't dislike these guys. They just feel a little off. They feel a little unusual, you could say, because that's the name of the video. Yeah, that's why I wanted to put them on the list, and that's why the botany are number 6. 5. Number 5 are the Bile Scourge, and the Bile Scourge are flying demons located all over Argus. And the Bile Scourge mostly feed on the corpses of victims of the Legion, but since the arrival of the Army of Light, they have also developed a taste for demon corpses as well. And so really, these guys are just like the vultures of Argus. Like they go around looking for corpses and just feasting on them. But what I think is so cool is just their design. They've got these ridges on their back and these big decaying wings, and it almost looks like there's a skull that's trapped inside of a demon bat. You see that? Like the skull is engulfed inside of the demon skin. And it kind of gives me a Zerg vibe from StarCraft. And there's actually quite a few unusual and weird mobs located all over Argus, especially some of the demons, but these were just some of the most unique ones I found. In fact, there is a pet you can get called Ear Seeker that is a Bile Scourge that you can get in the Antoran Wastes. I don't know why he's seeking out ears, but I don't want to know. And so that's why the Bile Scourge are number 5. 4. Number 4 is actually one of my favorite ones. It is the Crabby Relic Seekers located on the Isle of Dorn. And there's nothing special about these crabs from the looks of it. They're just normal crabs, but all of them are for some reason attacking these relics. They are just snipping away at the relics. They're not actually hitting them. They're like kind of far away from the relics, but they just keep attacking all these various relics all over the area, and I don't know why. There's no quests all around here, at least no quests that involve the crabs. And when I looked into it, there was no comments about these crabs. There's no, these crabs are an objective of blah, blah, blah. It's quite literally just, these are random crabs that are called relic seekers that are, I guess, trying to get these relics. And I'm like genuinely curious. This is a better plot line than Shadowlands. Why are these crabs trying to get these relics? Is it the old gods? Do they just find the relic shiny and they like shiny things, so they just start attacking them? Maybe they think shiny things are enemies? I have no idea, but I just want to know and I'm curious, and overall it's pretty unusual, and so that's why the Crabby Relic Seekers are number 4. 3. Number 3 are pretty much all of the mobs in Drustvar. Like, these are some extremely unusual mobs that you aren't really going to see in World of Warcraft. We have the Beastmen, which mostly resemble pigs, but there are some other animal hybrids here, and they are stitched together out of the corpses of humans and animals. And I actually talked about them in Pointless Top 10 creepy NPCs as well, and typically I try to not use things over and over on different lists because people will be like, oh, he already talked about this on a different list, but I thought these were unusual enough that they should make this list. And then there's also the curse-formed Ravagers, which are like the Wicker Men looking guys that look pretty unusual. In fact, there's also some curse-formed Ravager looking dogs. They're like weird Wicker Man dog creatures. I have no idea. Wicker dogs. But yeah, overall, this entire area is just filled with really unusual stuff, including some really unusual mobs. And so I had to include them all on the list. And that's why the unusual Beastmen, curse-formed Ravager, Drustvar mobs are number 3. 2. Number 2 are the Sloth Skin Nymphs located in Maldraxxus, and these are, I don't even think I remember these mobs. Like, obviously, because they're in Maldraxxus Shadowlands. Not many people remember much from Shadowlands or even just going back there or whatever, but these are just these weird bug creatures that are located in the, I guess it's like the mushroom swamp, because a sloth, I believe, is a swamp. I looked it up. It says a place of deep mud or mire. And it's just these really unusual bug creatures. They got little antennas that zap this little green, I don't know if it's energy or swamp juice or I don't know what acid. It's something. It always goes like, and it just dissipates after that. I don't know if this is them like getting some sort of energy inside of them out. I don't know if it just is a defense mechanism. I don't know what it is, but I haven't really seen anything like it in World of Warcraft. And they're like eating flies and they're running around with their bug kids. Like, I don't know what this place is, and I don't really want to find out, but it's pretty unusual. And so that's why the sloth skin nymphs are number 2.
1.
And number 1 are the Deep Striders. And these are without a doubt the most unusual mobs I've seen in World of Warcraft. They are these tall, very slender, deer-like beasts with extremely long legs, and they're located in the Zaralek Cavern and in the Ringing Deeps. And this Deep Strider is really cool. It's got these green and yellow glowing legs and tail, and it is a named Deep Strider called Alhaenir. There's actually a couple quests tied into this guy where you have to kill it and take its skull, but then its ghost starts attacking the town, and you have to kill all the slimes around it and get the skull out of the town. And this is all a reference to Princess Mononoke, if you've ever seen that. And if you haven't seen it, I'd suggest watching it, because it's a really good movie. But yeah, these are just really unusual mobs. Apparently, they're not even tameable by hunters due to technical issues, and they found that the extreme dimensions didn't work as a pet, which that sucks, because I would love to have one of these things as a pet. That would be pretty cool. And it also says here that Deep Striders are internally nicknamed Long Dogs. So I think that the Long Dog Deep Striders are the most unusual mob in World of Warcraft, and so that's why I put them at number 1.
10.
Number 10 is Shatterhorn, and Shatterhorn is a Yeti found in Frostblade Peak in the Howling Fjord. And the reason I love Shatterhorn is because he is literally the Snorlax of World of Warcraft. And Foreman Kobe is like, hey, my men are trying to mine ore for weapons, but a giant Yeti invaded the mine and he's blocking the tunnel. We need to expand. We've tried yelling at him and smoking him out, but nothing's working. So his idea is you go get a bunch of meat from the Frosthorn rams, and that'll be a good enough meal to wake him up, apparently. And so you go do that, you get the ram meat, you put it down in front of him, and he wakes up and he goes, "Bleh," and he starts attacking you, which I don't know why, because you're giving him food. You think he'd be like, awesome, ram meat, but he's just mad at you. I guess because you're invading his cave that he's sleeping in, and you woke him up from sleeping. There's plenty of people where if you wake him up from sleeping, they're going to be like, ugh. But I really do love this guy. I mean, he's just sitting there blocking the cave. Like I said earlier, he is Snorlax, and so that's why Shatterhorn is number 10.
9.
Number 9 is Chomp Chomp, and I picked Chomp Chomp, 1, because of his name. Chomp Chomp's a phenomenal name. And 2, he's part of this quest with the Hosen called the Lederhosen, which is a reference to Lederhosen, the German garment. And so the big part of the quest is that you send in this goat to scare away Chomp Chomp, and then he runs through the wall and he's like, "Bleh," and then the Ook of Duke says, "No, Wicket stole my Chomp Chomp. You bunch of dukers." You might be like, Crendor, why aren't you showing us this quest? That's because this is part of a 67-part quest chain that I'm not about to redo. Listen, I love this series, but I'm not about to do 66 quests just so a goat can run around so you can see the Yeti run through a wall. You could just go look it up or use your imagination. But Chomp Chomp is a fantastic Yeti, wonderful name, and I hope he's having a great time being free in the mountains. In the mountains. And that's why he's number 9.
8.
Number 8 are the Yetis of Dunmorrow, and I think a lot of people think of these Yetis when they think of Dunmorrow, because most people do the quest around like level 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever it might be, but they're actually Wendigos. So on WoWWiki, it says they are large furry horned humanoids similar to Yeti and Sasquatch. So I guess they're not technically a Yeti, but I'm not about to do a pointless top 10 Wendigos because I don't even think there are 10, or if there are, I don't even know. And there's like one Sasquatch in the game, which is Big Fist in the Gorduni Outpost in Feralis. So listen, I'm just saying they're Yetis. This list is already pointless, you know what I mean? So they're Yetis in my mind. So they walk around in Dunmorrow, they got their big ice cave, and according to the WoWWiki again, Wendigo along with ice trolls were among the races enslaved by the newly created Lich King shortly after the Frozen Throne crashed into the Ice-Crowned Glacier. After the end of the Second War, a group of dead Wendigos was found by Coriol Straz in the Nexus. So there you go, a little bit of lore right there, but I always remember him out of nostalgia, and that's really why I wanted to put him on the list, and that's why they're number 8.
7.
Number 7 is Ice Howl, and Ice Howl is the raid boss in the Argent Tournament that is sleeping outside in the Argent Tournament grounds. He's like pinned down, just sleeping out there. And I think it looks like they're guarding him, make sure he doesn't wake up and go crazy. But I forgot that Ice Howl's actually a Hearthstone card as well. I'm sure a lot of people did. And it says on the Ice Howl flavor text, this massive Yeti just closes his eyes and charges at the nearest target, which is very true, because when you go into this raid and he shows up, he is straight up charging at you. Like, look at that speed. He is like, bleh. But obviously Ice Howl is one of the most well-known Yetis because most people have done the Argent tournament, and you know, whether that's a good or a bad thing in your mind, you know, people remember him, right? So Ice Howl, I think, deserves to be on this list of the top 10 Yetis, and that's why he's number 7. 6. Number 6 is Whomper, and Whomper is a small baby Yeti, or Wendigo, I mean, either one. He's really the only baby of, like, any of these things in the game, and he's actually the 2018 charity pet. According to the BattleNet shop, it says, meet Whomper, the wandering young Yeti from the snowy passes of Drustvar, ready to melt the coldest of hearts. He stands up atop 2 enormous feet, prepared to rock along and join you on your adventure throughout Azeroth. So actually, look at that. They called him a Yeti, even though they say he's a Wendigo. Look at that. I don't even know. But it says Whomper's a playful baby Wendigo who sometimes trips over his own overly large feet. And when he wants to play, he will give you a playful headbutt. But he's just a little guy, man. He's just a little guy. He likes to walk around. He's got his big feet. And like I was mentioning earlier, it seems like he's the only baby Yeti in the game. Like, I haven't seen any baby Yetis walking around anywhere. Like, he is the only one. So for that reason alone, I think he should be on the list. But that's why I put him a bit higher on the list, because he's obviously a rare Yeti and he's very cute. So that's why Whomper is number 6. 5. Number 5 is Vagash, and Vagash is the Yeti Wendigo mob that overlooks the Amberstill Ranch in Dunmurrow, and he's actually the one that terrorizes the local farms and ram herds. So because of this, Rudra Amberstill wants you to slay the beast and bring her one of his fangs as proof. And I always remember this quest because back in Classic WoW, he was an elite mob, so you needed a group to do this, and especially playing hardcore WoW, you very much needed a group to do this, because this was like, oh boy, we got to go take down the elite Yeti, you know what I mean? But another thing I realized is this guy's been changed like 5 times throughout history. So back in patch 1.2, Vagash in Dunmurrow properly shows his elite status. In Burning Crusade, he was no longer elite. In Cataclysm, his level was reduced from 11 to 9, and he was no longer skinnable. And in Legion, he got the model updated, and he scaled from levels 5 to 21. So he's actually been changed quite a bit over the years. And so with all those things considered, I thought that number 5 was a good spot for Vagash, and that's why he's number 5. 4. Number 4 is Yetimus the Yeti Lord. And how could I not put the Yeti Lord on this list? So he is a big brown Yeti located in the Hillsborough foothills, and according to the quest, Yetimus the Yeti Lord, it says, for years, the mountain Yeti of this region have been allowed free reign. Our complacency in dealing with the Yeti menace has resulted in an aberration. Yetimus, Lord of all Yetis, has grown to a size and strength that our guards simply cannot handle. We fear that should his appetite lead him near Tarn Mill, he would devour us all. Gather a party and dispatch the beast. He roams the countryside to the west. And so when researching this, a lot of people are like, this guy's really hard to kill. It should say like 5 players specifically needed. This is wild. But like, obvious, like this dude's the Yeti Lord. Like, what do you expect? It's not like the Yeti Knight. It's not like the Yeti Servant. It's not like just some random guy. This is the Lord of Yetis. Like, he's gonna be difficult. I don't know why people are complaining. You know what I mean? I don't know. That was just something I read that bothered me for some reason. I was like, this dude's the Lord of Yetis. Like, he's gonna be difficult. Either way, that's why Yetimus the Yeti Lord is number 4. 3. Number 3 are the Feral and Rage Scar Yetis of Feralis. And these are some of the Yetis that I always think of when I think of Yetis, because I remember being in Feralis and getting the Yeti hides for the quests and doing all these different things, but I actually found out there's some interesting stuff about the Feral and Rage Scar Yetis. So the Feral Scar is a tribe of Yetis, and their leader is also named Feral Scar, and in the past, several Feral Scar Yetis fought against Varian Rin in Dire Maul. Since the Cataclysm, the Feral Scar Yetis flourished, and their hide was thought to have become stronger compared to several years ago. Meanwhile, the Rage Scar are a group of Yetis also in Feralis, and the bulk of the population lives in Rage Scar Hold. These Yetis were the finest source of leather in all of Fairless, and their pelts, when given a special treatment, are as resilient as iron. However, the Emerald Nightmare's corruption has affected these Yetis as well, leaving their pelts weak and rotted in places. But reading that just blew my mind, because I was like, dude, I always remember getting the thick Yeti hides, but to realize that they're as strong as iron? Like, that's actually pretty insane. It puts into perspective why everybody wanted to get these Yeti hides, because you're essentially just making iron armor out of it. But either way, these are some of the most well-known Yetis in World of Warcraft. They got some very rare hides, and they've got some cool backstories. So that's why the Feral Scar and Rage Scar Yetis are number 3. Number 2 are the Winter's Veil Yetis, which are the Abominable Grinch and Grumpus. So the Abominable Grinch is clearly a reference to the Grinch, the Dr. Seuss character, and he is also the one who steals Metzen the reindeer, which I covered in Pointless Top 10 Reindeer last week. He's located in the Alterac Mountains, and it also says that he is known to attack travelers passing through the mountains, taking their entire food supply, according to the WoW Wiki. It's also one of the reasons the Smoky Wood Pastors are so fed up with the Grinch, because they make use of the mountain routes to transport their goods, and then the Grinch gets in the way, and then obviously they lose money, they lose resources, and so obviously they're upset. Now on the other side, Grumpus is a giant Yeti that is in the Frostfire Ridge. And according to the WoW Wiki, one of Draenor's oldest stories is the legend of Grumpus. The story tells of a mean-spirited brute that would come in the night in the dead of winter and kidnap children that misbehaved. Back at his lair, he would present them with awful toys and use their tears to spawn his minions. But Grumpus is no legend, he's quite real. No one quite knows when the legend of Grumpus began in Draenor, but his toys are just the worst. Like, what toys is he giving out? Is he giving out, like, evil Furbies or something? Like, I don't know. But anyway, Grumpus is actually a reference to Krampus, which is the horned anthropomorphic figure in Alpine folklore who appeared during the Christmas season to punish misbehaving children, which seems like it's much worse than getting coal in your stocking. But with all that put aside, the Abominable Grinch and Grumpus are two of the most famous Yetis in World of Warcraft, and they always come back every year for the Winter's Veil festivities, and that's why they're number 2. And number 1 is Koda Khan. And Koda Khan is a Yeti up in the Kunlai Summit that goes crazy after you give her Kaffa, or Kaffa, I don't know which one it is, but it's coffee. And one of the Grumbles says, Koda Khan wants more Kaffa, but I already fed her all that I have. Then I tried giving her a nice bow, but she's not satisfied. And then he says, I think she can smell the Kaffa I drank for breakfast. But I don't know how I never knew this quest was in the game. A quest where you help the Grumbles with a Yeti by getting it coffee? Like, how did I not know this? I guess I just breezed through it when I was leveling back in Pandaria, but this quest is phenomenal. And then you get to ride around on Koda Khan while she smashes a bunch of Hosen, very likely in a caffeine-induced rage. So in the grand scheme of things, this is a quest about giving coffee to a Yeti that then has a bow and smashes Hosen for the Grummels. How could I not put this at number 1? And that's why Koda Khan is number 1. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this Pointless Top 10 compilation video of creatures and mobs. If you want more, you can go check out NPCs or you go check out animals. Okay? Okay. See you.